The story begins with Dud glancing out the window and feigning thought. According to the butterfly effect, humanity's fate can change from a single simple choice. In other words, it's like a nodule phenomenon. At least to me it is, because up to now I've made quite a few regrettable choices. Just as he thought this, a girl's voice outside suddenly startled Dud. Honey, can you hear me? I knew you were in there, so I came. You'd better open the door. I asked Ophelia, the guild housekeeper. She said you don't have any classes today. Are you planning to ignore me forever? Turning toward Dud and hearing the familiar voice, his face drained as if he were about to die, sweat poured out and he screamed inwardly, there was no stalker like her. Then, as if to prove Dud's thoughts, the girl outside thrust a sword straight through the door, as if trying to break in. Then I'll make my own way in, she said calmly. Dud cursed her silently. That crazy woman. Thinking that, he hurriedly reached out and shouted to stop her, you can't do that, it's against the rules. The student council president is the one who administers punishment for rule breakers. In response, his girlfriend revealed a shocking fact. Unfortunately for him, she was the student council president. No sooner had the words fallen than the door itself split into pieces, and shattered into fragments. Then the unfamiliar girl stepped into the room and scolded, lately you've been avoiding me a lot, exactly 32 times. You even kept count? Dud grumbled. But the unfamiliar girl paid no mind and calmly made a proposal to the protagonist. I have a question for you. Dud Campbell, will you marry me? The line came from a girl dressed in something like a uniform, with a long sword at her hip. Before the protagonist could answer, another girl's voice sounded beside him. What are you saying? Princess Tristan. I didn't expect you'd go for a taken pot. Is that how your family behaves? These words came from a purple-haired girl sitting by the window, who also had a pair of animal ears on her head. Seeing her, Tristan's expression turned serious and her voice cold. Isn't that too flashy a target for an assassin? There will be many witnesses. In reply, Sarah stuck out her tongue playfully. Killing all the witnesses is my motto, princess. Down below, Dud blinked and quickly interjected, wait, I'm extremely uncomfortable right now, I haven't even thought about marriage. No sooner had he spoken than his roof was blown apart, and a blue-haired girl landed inside. Seeing her appear, Dud involuntarily called out, Riru. And sure enough Riru had the same goal as the others. She turned to Dud excitedly and said, live with me, Dud. The wedding preparations are done, only you're missing. Hearing this, a black-haired girl suddenly appeared with a murderous glare and swung a chain at Riru. How rude. What do you usually do to let half-baked women surround you like this? As your fiancé, I won't let this pass. No sooner had she spoken than a red-haired girl rode in on her flaming broom. Can you all shut up? The jealous women, Dud Campbell is mine. And so, all the girls glared at one another with burning eyes. They all knew the other wouldn't let Dud go easily. Without a moment's hesitation, they all charged at each other at once, and Dud was caught in the middle of the chaos. He could only scream in despair. Why are you all babbling to each other on your own? So how did this all happen? Let's see. It was the survival game that put me in this situation. It's called Savior Rising, or Sorry for short, a fresh academy story aimed at spirited youth. It has a bit of a Precious World vibe, but the characters are familiar and stable. When I cleared the game and saw the ending, I found it quite fun and a little rewarding. But the next day I was sucked into the game. Sound plausible, right? Hey, it's not like I cursed the game and some divine developer targeted me, right? I wasn't even attached to the protagonist. Anyway, I ended up inhabiting the character Dud Campbell. He doesn't have any power at all and is merely the heir of an obscure viscount. He's just a third-rate background character in that world. Agriculture is the main economy of the Campbell Viscountcy. Also, there are no dungeons there like the ones scattered across the empire. It's barely mentioned in Sari's main storyline, so the news that a Viscount's son was entering the Royal Academy became a sensational story. On the day Dud was about to depart for the academy, his father and all the people of the Viscountcy came to send him off with unimaginable joy. His father couldn't hold back his emotion. Finally you're leaving. Dud, you are the pride of our Viscountcy. Take care and don't cause trouble. Elfonte gathers the descendants of every noble in the empire. The best thing you, a Viscount's son, can do is not attract attention, understand? His father's overly thorough reminder made Dud give an awkward laugh. Haha, I told you I understand. Then he checked his status panel. Status info, Dud Campbell. Strength, low. Agility, low. Stamina, low. Luck, low. Authority, low. Skill info, none. Mastery info, none. No special talents, no unique gifts. Staring at his pathetic status panel, sweat poured from Dud's face. He didn't know how he could safely graduate from the academy with such weak stats. Everything was low. Even I, a seasoned player, had never seen starting stats this bad. The system's main task for Dud was to enroll in the academy and be assigned to a class. According to the game system, ignoring the task ends the game, because the Elfanti Academy I'm about to enter will fall into chaos from the villain's brutality. I absolutely won't do anything that could threaten my life. Thinking that, Dud gave his father a look full of confidence. Don't worry, I'll do my best not to attract anyone's attention. I won't entertain any grand dreams of raising the Viscountcy's fame. I'll keep my grades below average. With that, he said his goodbyes and boarded the train to the Royal Academy. But fate seemed to be toying with him. The events never went smoothly as he wanted. Isn't the heroine supposed to handle everything herself? Not attracting attention is what a true loner should do. My academy life officially began, so why was I on the same train as her right from the start? Before Dud sat a stunningly beautiful girl with silver hair. She spent the train ride reading a book and sipping tea. But don't be fooled by that beautiful appearance. From my gaming experience, I knew exactly who she was. She was Elnor Aranori's La Tristan, the bloodthirsty, corpse-burying final boss of that world. In the scenarios, she and the protagonist repeatedly clashed and gradually lost their minds. The dormant existence of the Grey Demon eventually consumed Elnor's body and turned her into the final boss. No one but the protagonist completed that final development capable of confronting her. Opposite him, Elnor, still engrossed in her book, seemed to sense Dud staring and called out, "Do you need to see a doctor?" His face didn't look well. Hearing that, Dud saw the female antagonist notice him. His face went pale and he hurriedly waved his hand. No, I'm fine. Elnor continued speaking, though her eyes never left the book. My choice to sit here instead of first class was deliberate to show that our ducal family is a high-ranking noble house. Sorry for making you worry. Anyone who shares a carriage with me has that expression. Her voice was a bit cold but gave Dud a strangely different feeling. He thought to himself that she was nothing like he remembered. Keywords used to describe Elnor were perfection-seeking and bold. So what did this sensitive side of hers mean? From Elnor's viewpoint, seeing Dud not answer, she prompted again, "Why aren't you answering? Are you curious about something else?" In reply, Dud awkwardly scratched his head. No, it's nothing, you're really kind." Hearing that, Elnor paused her reading, looked at Dud, and asked, "Kind? Are you hearing something, or have we met before?" Faced with this, Dud immediately became flustered. He cursed himself silently and hurriedly explained, No, I just heard you're quite strict." Seeing his flustered state, Elnor sighed and returned her attention to the book. "You really are a strange one." At her words, Dud could only force a crooked smile. "Yes, I've heard that a lot. Ha. After saying that, he began to pray silently. "I'm just an extra, don't get involved, don't involve me. I should stay quiet and stare out the window." Come to think of it, the scenery looked magnificent. There was even a boulder rolling toward us. Thinking that, Dud seemed to snap awake. His eyes bulged out, and the giant rock was already flying toward the window. With no other way to protect himself, Dud immediately turned to beg Elnor. "Student Council President, forgive me." Saying that, he reached toward her. A second later, the giant rock slammed into the carriage, causing a massive explosion. Clouds of smoke billowed straight up. Yet despite the sudden accident, Dud and Elnor remained safe, because they were currently protected by some kind of necklace. Dud realized this, so he lunged and clung to Elnor to get inside the necklace's protective range. Elnor always carried that, an identification and crafting armor for a mature skeleton. With all stats being low, I wouldn't survive. Dud clenched his teeth and silently awaited the shock of the blast to pass. Only when Elnor's prompting voice sounded did he regain himself. "Are you okay? Can you sit up? It's heavy." Her words made Dud startle and realize his face was buried in her ample chest. He blushed and hurriedly sat up, stammering, "I'm sorry." Before Dud could finish, Elnor cut him off. "It's fine, you did that to save me. This is the first time a man has approached me so boldly. But thanks, I get your meaning, so don't apologize." Elnor's words made Dud's face flush with shame, because she had completely misunderstood. Mr. Dud had dived at her only to benefit from the armor. She didn't know his true intention. Elnor sat up, adjusted her hair, and asked his name. From the protagonist's perspective, at that question he felt a sudden unease, as if answering would mean running into her all the time. What should I say? If I tell her, what will she do to me? After thinking that, he nevertheless gave his full name, Dud Campbell. Elnor nodded. All right, I won't forget this. I'll repay you later. No sooner had the villainess spoken than Dud received a system notification. You have attracted the attention of a villainous character. Conditions for receiving a special gift have been met. You have acquired the skills Desperate Survival and Lethal Charm. Seeing that message, Dud's face went completely dumbfounded. Time passed quickly, and now a team of medics had arrived at the site of the train accident to treat the injured. Was it because this train came from Elfanti? Thanks to special security measures, casualties were few. Those who had been checked were now able to go. Next, Dud sat back in the carriage to continue his journey. While traveling, he took the chance to check the system notifications about the special gifts. The first gift, Linked Fate. When you receive more attention from those with villainous traits, you will receive various rewards. This system message made Dud stroke his chin and brood. No wonder he couldn't discover the activation conditions back in his lackluster domain. Not to mention villainous traits in that carefree land. Finding even a neutral person was difficult. No wonder this gift had never been triggered. Should I check what I just received? Unable to suppress his curiosity, Dud quickly inspected his new acquisitions. First was Desperate Survival, rank unknown. Your stats increase when you enter dangerous situations. The effect scales with the level of danger. The next skill was Lethal Charm, rank unknown. It makes it easy to attract the attention of those with villainous traits. The more extreme the situation, the stronger the effect. Dud felt conflicted about the two, relieved and worried. Desperate Survival would surely be useful in combat and help him survive. But on the other hand, Lethal Charm, could I really have something like that? Villainous traits. Villainous characters in the game included a warrior crazed by battle, a berserk sword god, one who cleaved anyone daring to enter a 3-step radius. A bloodthirsty assassin would kill anyone for the right price. A mage prodigy who had lost all sense of the world. They were all just troublemakers. But now, whatever, right? What mattered was that I got a skill to help me survive. Strangely, the skill ranks were recorded as unknown. Even as an SR-ranked veteran I had never seen that before. What could it mean? Across from him, the doctor, seeing Dud's face flicker with emotion, asked with concern, "Hey, are you all right? Should I do another psychological evaluation?" No, I'm fine, Dud replied hastily. Time passed quickly like that. The carriage had brought Dud straight to Elfanti Academy, cut to a large plaza inside the academy. At this moment a professor's voice rang out as the freshmen gathered. Although the unfortunate incident occurred, I thank you all for arriving safely. This year's freshmen are truly impressive. Back to Dud. He paid no mind to the professor's speech. Instead, he was recalling his conversation with the doctor in the carriage. The doctor had asked, "But you're just the son of an obscure viscount, with no connections, right?" "I was also a former student of Elfanti and come from an obscure noble family. The Tristan domain has many enemies, you'd better stay away from her from now on. If you stick around that group of high nobles you'll get into trouble." "I'll remember," Dud replied. At that moment the system issued a reminder related to Elnor. Only 2 days remained until the first stage faith event. Thinking that, Dud let out a dismal sigh. Don't kid yourself, whether I want it or not, I'm involved with her now. At this academy, where whispers run rampant, it's nothing compared to her being a candidate to become the final boss. Just standing next to her is like signing your own death warrant. Before Dud could think much longer, a loud shout rang out ahead. "Dud Campbell, you bastard, why are you spacing out?" Hearing that, Dud snapped out of his spiraling thoughts and looked toward the source of the voice. A few students were looking at him with teasing eyes. "Heh, look at that country bumpkin, everyone else has paired up already, only you're left. Your opponent gets auto-assigned." The brown-haired guy said this while pointing at Dud. Seeing that, Dud hurriedly ran down and muttered a curse at himself. Right, after the opening ceremony the combat trials start immediately. Scratching his head, Dud asked, "Excuse me, who am I paired with?" He said it calmly, but inside he was freaking out. He understood that if everyone else had chosen opponents, the leftover must be the strongest. Sure enough, a girl with orange hair extended a hand and introduced herself. "Hi, do you need a hand?" Looking at her beautiful face and bright smile, Dud couldn't bring himself to smile when he realized who stood before him. She was the greatest genius in the world. In the future, she would become the savior. This is the protagonist of Savior Rising. Dud could only reach out to her, tears welling at the corners of his eyes. Am I doomed? He wondered. Time passed quickly, scene cut to the office of a female professor. Her colleagues were complaining, Count Christ just arrived, Viscount Galantis is here too. When will Miss Tristan show up? Not to mention them, the female professor was beside herself. Has she lost her mind? The one-on-one qualifiers are underway, how can she possibly be late? As she thought that, as if answering her wish, the sound of footsteps echoed ahead. Everyone turned to the noise and saw Elnor's figure, covered in blood, strolling forward. Her appearance startled everyone. The professor immediately demanded, I have a lot to ask you. Where the hell have you been? Elnor replied that she had been busy dealing with something, but just looking at her made it clear that something was no small matter. The professor sighed and signaled to her colleagues, sorry, but she and I have some matters to settle first. Once everyone else left the room, the professor asked, did anyone die? Not many, maybe around a dozen, Elnor shrugged and explained, they were there to carry out a botched assassination. They rolled a huge boulder toward the Academy's train and tried to make it look like an accident. I found out who they were and happened to be nearby, so I dealt with them. Hearing this, the professor advised her to let the school handle it. Before the professor could finish, Elnor turned and retorted, you expect me to be fair and perfect to everyone? To forgive those who tried to kill me? Across from her, seeing Elnor's resolute expression, the professor gave up on lecturing. Fine, but change your clothes first. The one-on-one qualifiers are still going on. If you go now, you'll meet Elijah. A once-in-a-millennium genius. Elijah Chrysanax and Dud Campbell. What the hell is this? The professor stammered, unable to pronounce the protagonist's name correctly. But the name sounded vaguely familiar to Elnor. She blurted out, Dud Campbell. Hearing this, the professor was surprised and asked, oh, it's him. How do you know him? The professor asked. He doesn't seem to stand out at all. For Elnor, an image of the protagonist looking awkward began to form in her mind. She unconsciously let out a small smile and whispered that the guy was rather odd. Back with Dud. He trembled as he gripped the wooden sword in his hands. As everyone watched his shaking form, they jeered and gossiped, jump in. You rustic pumpkin. How many moves can he even do? Monkey tricks? He's lucky he isn't injured. Ignoring their words, Dud understood how dire his situation was. His stats were terrible, if he took a hit from her, he might be done for. So this might actually work to my advantage. It's definitely a dangerous situation. Right? I have nothing left to lose. I'm sure the villains I'll face are among these people. If I don't die, at least I can draw their attention with my information edge and these boosted stats. Maybe I'll survive, Dud thought to himself. Meanwhile, across from him, Elijah saw the protagonist's tense, sweating face and anxiously said, hey, be honest with me, you're actually really weak, aren't you? I was right. I was about to beat you senseless earlier, but if that's the case, never mind. Hearing this from the swordswoman, Dud curiously asked, beat me senseless? Me, why would you do that? Elijah's slightly annoyed face answered. You're the one who came with that girl Elnor, right? I hate her. Not just her, I hate the Tristan family. They're all demons. Back in Dud's viewpoint, he now understood everything. She actually said that, she's bold. Although she couldn't articulate it, the story implied she opposed the Tristan family on many issues. I get it, because of the family's scandals. Thinking that, Dud explained, I was just in the same place as her. Facing Elijah, she wouldn't accept the explanation. But you still remind me of her face. You annoy me, so I'll hurt you, but should we pretend to fight each other? Hearing that, our protagonist could only sigh bitterly. Honestly, that offer did sound tempting. But if I don't get stronger within 2 days, my life will be in danger. The only way to survive is to make the people here notice me. Thinking this, though terrified, Dud tried to calm his trembling body and forced himself to say, I can give it my all against you. Actually, I rather like her. The moment Dud said this, Elijah's face darkened. The atmosphere around her seemed to shift. Elijah tightened her grip on the wooden sword and coldly asked the protagonist, are you serious? Of course I'm serious, but if I really want you to fight at full strength, this is the only way. Dud screamed inside and reaffirmed it, just as if he hated her. At the same time, the system issued a reminder, deadly charm activated. You are increasingly attracting villains and have added a reward to your gift bar. Back to Elijah, upon hearing Dud, she decided not to hold back. Is that so? Then I won't feel remorseful. Saying that, she pushed off with both legs and lunged forward like an arrow through the wind, bringing her sword down in a blinding swing. At that speed, her attack immediately cleaved Dud's wooden sword in two. Luckily he had kept his eyes wide to watch Elijah's movement, so he was able to jerk his head back and narrowly dodge. Although Dud still couldn't hide the panic on his face. His evasion surprised Elijah a little. "Oh, you dodged that? So you're not exactly weak after all. Then I'll go a bit harder." Saying that, the swordswoman Elijah took up an attacking stance again. This time, she was obviously more serious. Just looking at the way she held her sword made Dud's hair stand on end. A string of glaring red system alerts kept warning Dud that he was in a dangerous situation. Danger, not life-threatening. Activate desperate plea for survival notification just appeared, and Dud felt an invisible surge of power well up inside him. Then, as a natural reflex, he unconsciously thrust a punch straight forward, and it happened to hit Elijah in the face. The result was a punch rated rank EX, the highest rank. Elijah's body flew backward like a cannonball, and slammed into the wall, the impact causing a massive explosion. This left Dud and all the other freshmen staring in wide-eyed shock. Dud Campbell, whose stats were all at rock bottom on his first day at Elfonte Academy, had just defeated the protagonist of this world. As a consequence, the Academy's professors immediately called an emergency meeting. In the meeting, a green-haired professor spoke up. "The first possibility is that this brat Dud is hiding his cards." At that, a teasing voice rang out. He changed his tune about him quickly. "Huh? Conrad." Professor Conrad replied calmly rather than angrily. "Anyway, none of this adds up. Everyone here is knowledgeable, surely they know he had no combat skill or strength before the duel. But that strike packed a punch." "What do you mean by, packed a punch?" a professor opposite asked. Conrad fell silent for 2 seconds and then elaborated. "I mean not only Elijah Chrysonax, no one could have come out unscathed from that blow. First, I estimate the chance he defeated future warrior Elijah Chrysonax is 0. But by some banned substance or tool, by some method, he temporarily increased his strength. The remaining possibility is that he truly is a prodigy." His words rendered the other professors in the meeting silent, unable to reply. After a dozen or so seconds, a beautiful blue-haired female professor adjusted her glasses and shook her head. "But his victory is really hard to accept. Kendrid, the border marquis and Elijah's patron, won't sit idly by. But if we ignore a student with such great potential, it would be a huge loss for our academy. Soon we'll know whether he's a fraud or not. So let's wait and see what comes to light." Her remark made the green-haired Conrad frown in confusion and ask what she meant. The female professor replied calmly, "This year's incoming class has many interesting students. Some are so unique we must treat them specially. If this student truly is as special as you say, I'm sure he'll find a place among this year's new intake." Thus, Dud defeating Elijah with a single blow sparked a huge uproar and even made the breaking news. All eyes turned to him. Dud Campbell, who exactly is he? Maybe he's the son of the Imperial Knight Commander, or perhaps the greatest talent ever at the Academy. A new star shockingly collapsing right after enrollment. Looking at the paper in his hands, Dud sighed as if facing death. "The news, from where I came from and in this game, are they for real?" He tossed the newspaper aside and checked the system notification related to the character info gift for Elnor Aranori's La Tristan. Trust level 1 rose to trust level 2. Reward available, character event D1 from Baron Lupin, curiosity level 1, plus 50 points. Baron, interest level 3. Plus 140 points. Reading these notifications, Dud quickly pieced a few things together. So curiosity rises to liking, then to trust, and I can spend the points in the point shop. The most curious person is Elnor, but why the final boss? Someone who shouldn't be interested in me is this intrigued? Despite his protests, Dud immediately claimed the reward. Receiving Elnor's gift granted him the Tristan clan swordsmanship trait. The unexpectedly good reward made Dud's eyes widen. A clan famous for swordsmanship? Let's see. Their clan is tied to demons, but screw it. After that, he noticed Elijah now had curiosity level 4 about him. However, he couldn't claim a reward yet. Why am I here with them? Rewards are only for villains who have a positive interest in you. She's not a villain and doesn't have a positive interest in me. Just as he thought that and hadn't had time to study it further, a knock on the door from outside made him startle and turn around. Next, a familiar voice called out, "Is this Dud Campbell's room?" "It's me. Elijah Chrysonax. Can I come in?" Back in Dud's view, he had sworn not to get involved with main characters or antagonists. So when this heroine approached, his face went pale. He bit his lips and wondered why she was here. Would she leave if he didn't answer? Outside, as if reading his thoughts, Elijah said, "Hey, I know you're in there. If you don't answer, I'll break this door down." Her threat made Dud shout back, "Are you crazy?" Outside, hearing Dud reply, Elijah softened her voice, "You're in there? Can you open the door? I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Dud stammered. "Oh, just things so we can get to know each other better." Elijah answered. Time passed quickly. Elijah the swordswoman paced the corridor, then sighed and muttered. He should have agreed. Why get so tense? What's his problem? I don't know how to make friends with boys. The thought made Elijah a little frustrated, and while not paying attention, she seemed to bump into someone, causing the food bag the other person held to fall to the ground. "Oh, you should watch where you're going," the person opposite scolded, and Elijah hurriedly helped pick up the food bag. But when she looked up and realized she had bumped into Elnor, Elijah froze. An image formed in her mind of a blonde-haired boy standing on a sea of flames, telling her to run. Looking at Elnor, Elijah began trembling uncontrollably. Her hand gripping the food bag tightened until the veins stood out. "I'm fine," Elijah replied hesitantly and loosened her grip on the sword's hilt. "I grabbed the sword out of instinct." Elijah worriedly watched Elnor, wondering silently whether she could defeat her in her current state. "Elnor Tristan, she must have seen my hand, right? But why hasn't she thought to respond to it? Does that imply she doesn't even need to react to me anymore?" Across from her, Elnor indeed paid no mind. Instead, she reached forward and demanded, "Give it back, hand it over." In response, Elijah's trembling hand returned the food bag to Elnor, while wondering inwardly, Dud, how could he be connected to this girl? After returning the item, the two of them brushed past each other. As they walked, Elijah said the right corridor leads to Dud Campbell's room. Hearing this, Elnor stopped and called out, "Wait a moment." Hearing the question, Elijah looked slightly surprised and casually said, "I've been with him this whole time." "Why?" Elnor's face darkened at Elijah's answer as she asked, "For what reason?" Elnor's attitude shifted so quickly that Elijah was a bit puzzled. Why was she so hostile? Elijah scratched her head and said, "Just to make friends. Among the new students, I just want to make friends." Before the swordswoman could say another word, Elnor glared at her and warned coldly, "New students are forbidden from socializing with the opposite sex." "Forbidden?" Elijah asked in confusion. Before she could finish, a red gleam appeared in Elnor's eyes as she said, "I've just established one of those. So from now on, you must not set foot near his room." Elnor's uncompromising words made Elijah smell something suspicious. "Excuse me, but what is your relationship with him?" the council president asked. Elnor turned away nonchalantly and added, "He's nothing to me." "Still, remember what I just told you." Back in her thoughts, Elijah grew more suspicious the more Elnor spoke. There's something between those two, though it's just for gathering information, should still keep befriending him. Time passed quickly, cutting to some massive building. Today countless freshmen had gathered because it was the day of Alfonte Academy's class cooperation exam. This test is designed to thoroughly analyze every aspect of students. Pupils are divided into teams after one-on-one matches. And because I defeated that warrior candidate, I was placed into the highest level group. Everyone looked incredibly proud, except for me. I felt worried. The biggest problem is that girl. I rejected her yesterday, and now she's on my team. That's painful. Thinking that, Dud spat and glanced at the system screen beside him. Elijah's curiosity level toward him had reached 5, but he still couldn't claim the reward. Near an interest level change for an important character, a special event will trigger when the interest state shifts. Seeing that, the protagonist could only force a goofy smile. Haha, she increased her interest in me again. What's going on? Thinking back to the letter and food last night, does that mean someone is watching me? Why is all this happening to me? But whatever, focus on the exam. Maybe not too much will happen this time. After all, it's part of the main arc. At the front of the group, Student Council President Elnor crossed her arms and announced, "Hello everyone, I'm Elnor. I am in charge of this exam." Her appearance startled the protagonist. What? No way, it's a coincidence. Elnor's event is indeed today, but is she really in charge of us? It would be stranger if nothing happened during the exam. As for why Elnor was assigned to supervise Dud's group, the strongest group, that was also because of Dud. In the professors' meeting the previous day, they agreed that if Dud truly was a talent capable of subduing the warrior candidate, they eagerly wanted to see his performance in the class cooperation exam. Let the student council president proctor the exam as a precaution. Back in the present, the swordswoman Elnor turned and reminded them, first, move to the testing area, we'll receive the questions there. With that, the group filed into the testing building one after another. But not long after they started, the hallway suddenly went pitch black. Wow, this place looks cool, someone exclaimed as the lights had just gone out. Seeing this, the swordswoman Elijah involuntarily turned to Elnor beside her. She said she would receive the questions after we arrived here, right? So is this also part of the test? Hearing the question, Elnor only fell silent, scanning the surroundings without saying a word. As for Dud, he was the clearest about the current situation. The system had just sent him a notification, the Elnor event was now active. Event? The next assassination, surviving assassins are still targeting her, protect this target. Reading the notice, Dud could only sigh gloomily. This is a trap, not a test anymore. Up ahead, a few students nervously told each other they'd handle it, not to worry, and that they should move on. Who knows what could happen here? Back with Dud, he glanced around and realized something. Wait, looking again, these people are all members of the protagonist's party. If I remember the plot correctly, this is where they first met, so the people in this room are quite important to the story. Thinking that, a spark lit in Dud's mind. He immediately pointed at the map carved on the wall and voiced his thought. I think heading to the central hall would be best. There should be equipment and supplies there. More importantly, it's a spacious area where defending against ambushes would be far easier than in these narrow corridors. You must have felt it too. President and Elijah, we're not the only ones here, and I'm going over there. As he spoke, Dud pointed in a different direction. This made Elijah curious and she asked, huh? Why? Because it's necessary, Dud answered. Elijah still didn't fully understand his intent and reminded him, why that way? That route is completely away from the central hall. Dud replied with a very serious face. I can't say, but this is very important, I'll explain clearly later. Yes, very important. I wasn't lying to them, what's more important than saving my own skin, right? With that, though the others didn't grasp the protagonist's true intentions, the group quickly split up. Elnor's team moved to the main hall, while Dud took a completely different route. In the quiet corridor, Dud exhaled softly. This has to work. It seemed that defeating Elijah had made his words more believable. I just need to hide until the event ends. After all, the assassination target this time is Elnor, so they definitely won't pay attention to me. I'll just find a corner and sit quietly until it's over. That was what Dud thought. But if things always went his way, it wouldn't be fun. Suddenly a voice sounded behind him, I'm here to fix the electricity, can you guide me? My eyes aren't good in the dark. Hearing that, Dud cast a slight glance at the man and the system immediately warned him, danger detected. Back with Elnor's group, they had reached the large hall area. By now, all the freshmen in the group had sensed the presence of assassins hiding in the darkness. Then a girl dressed like a cleric in the group anxiously asked, Elijah, do you think Dud will be okay on his own? What if something happens? Elijah, fully trusting Dud's plan, replied confidently, even if he's scheming something, he must have a plan. Besides, it seems something is about to happen to us anyway. Back at Dud's position, he was leading the stranger behind him. As they walked, the assassin thought, the vanguard was wiped out by that cunning woman. But that would only be the case if we weren't here. Even this guy was easily deceived. A professional assassin like me can assess someone's skill just by watching their movements. This guy is a complete amateur. I can toy with him before finishing him off. I'll take over his body and eliminate Miss Tristan. Thinking that, the assassin gave up pretending to be Dud. He tore away his disguise to reveal a completely different face, drew a sharp short sword, and said coldly to the protagonist, well done, it's time I reward you. Turning toward Dud's corner, after seeing the assassin's true face he breathed a sigh of relief, all his worries seemed to lift. Phew, thank the gods, just as I thought, it's you, Hazmed. If the opponent had been a bit stronger I might have been in danger. I'm truly relieved. Your swagger still looks like the same guy I remember. Desperate survival, rank A. Opposite him, seeing Dud so unfazed, the assassin felt a flash of anger. What the hell is he saying? I'm speechless. Still, he's just weak. I'll kill him at once. No sooner thought than done, the assassin lunged forward. Meanwhile Dud gripped a staff tightly. The duel between them officially began. Cut to Elnor's group's location. Their battle with the assassins was underway, more accurately, the assassins were being beaten to a pulp. Each assassin's body was slammed into the walls. Magic, sword techniques, and spells were being used everywhere. Cries of pain and moans echoed from the assassins as they couldn't stand against the students' overwhelming power. "What is this? They're weaker than I thought," a red-haired student said. Elsewhere, the swordswoman Elijah called orders, "Focus, freeze them in place." She then glanced over at Elnor. With a single swing of her sword she could easily send 4 assassins flying into the wall before her. The strike was so powerful that when their bodies hit the wall, it left large gouges. Next, Elnor drove her sword into an assassin's arm and interrogated him. "Besides you, were others sent? If you don't answer I'll break your neck." As she spoke she twisted the blade, opening the assassin's wound. He screamed in agony. Unable to bear the pain, the assassin spat out everything. After hearing that, Elnor asked again, "You mean Hazmed of the Crescent Moon? Is he in this building or nearby?" In response the assassin, not yet sufficiently broken, still blustered and refused to answer. "I won't tell you." No sooner had he spoken than Elnor stomped his face into the floor and warned, "He's here with us, isn't he?" Below, the assassin felt as if his skull were about to be crushed. With no choice, he betrayed Hazmed and confessed. "Yes, he came with us, following behind." Watching this, the swordswoman Elijah asked in puzzlement why she had gone that far. In reply, Elnor slowly turned back and warned, "They tried to kill me, and Hazmed of the Crescent Moon is an assassin who can take another's form by killing them. According to her, who is the easiest target for him in the building right now?" Hearing this, Elijah's mind immediately jumped to a name and she probed, "Could it be Dud? Did he use himself as bait to draw out the strongest enemy? There are assassins hunting her, why would he go so far away? What is the relationship between him and her?" Elnor cut Elijah off before she could finish. "I've said it already, we have nothing, at least as far as I know. Return to Dud's fight with the assassin Hazmed." At this moment, Hazem's thoughts kept racing. "I'm a professional assassin. A guardian spirit is supposed to be a barrier against slashing attacks. That only reacts to weapons. So why is it here in a place like this? The academy is ancient and mystical, so I guess it makes sense. It's fine, since an assassin is a weapon itself. But why has it come to this? Right now Hazem's situation isn't much different from that of his subordinate assassins. Dud had made him cough up blood with just a wooden staff. The strikes the protagonist unleashed were lightning fast. Hazmed couldn't even react before taking countless blows. At the same time, Dud received a system notification. "You have successfully used a sword skill. Your Tristan swordsmanship proficiency has increased." Seeing this, Dud paused briefly to catch his breath. Meanwhile Hazmed sat back against the wall, constantly coughing blood. He finally understood why Dud was so strong. Tristan swordsmanship? Maybe I shouldn't have touched him from the start. Thinking that, Hazmed bitterly said, "So you were the one baiting me. Who are you?" The sudden question left Dud dumbfounded. He had no plan. He was only slipping away from the crowd to avoid being drawn into the fight. Also, the assassin's delusion was triggered by the protagonist's charm skill. Charm had been activated, and the villain was astonished by your meticulous plan. "Thanks to the game system, you can't use weapons at save points, that's why I lured him here. It seems you don't intend to answer. Fine, kill me then," Hazmed said calmly, as if death were no great matter. But contrary to what he expected, Dud had no intention of killing him. "I'm not going to kill you. Pass this message to the others, stay away from Miss Tristan. Tell them even an assassin like you nearly died." When he said this, Dud actually had a calculation in mind. "I don't know who ordered it, but it's likely they'll strike again. If that happens, the chance of Elnor's grey demon being unleashed will increase. So try to prevent that possibility from the start." Across from him, Dud's request made Hazmed smirk mockingly. "And if I come back after this, then what?" Dud replied in a very serious tone, "Then try me, because next time I'll protect her again." Hearing that, Hazmed frowned and asked, "Is Miss Tristan really that important to you?" "Let's assume so," Dud answered. Immediately after, a series of system notifications arrived. Willpower charm activated. The villain's favorability skyrocketed exponentially. Seeing the alert and sensing something, Dud hurriedly turned around. Sure enough, the swordswoman Elnor was standing behind him and had heard everything. Time quickly passed to the next morning. Elnor's close friend was sprawled over a desk, exhausted, buried under a mountain of paperwork. "It's chaos. I understand why the Prime Minister lost it, but why immediately pursue and arrest the mastermind? I have a mountain of work here. The Academy's internal affairs are a mess, but based on the timeline of the assassination attempt, it's been confirmed there's a spy. Elnor, I know political schemes against you are common, but since this is the second assassination plot, it's clear they're determined. But this event is different, whoever is behind it will certainly strike again, and those around her have all been commended. Despite that, everyone was knocked out without injury. The problem is Dud Campbell, he's the only one not recorded as commended. There's no reason for him not to be, and I don't know why. It's as if he's deliberately avoiding the Academy's attention. In response, Elnor answered with a vacant look. I don't know. Her offhand reply annoyed her friend, who warned, if you say, I don't know, again, I'll hit you. Go ahead then, Elnor said nonchalantly, which made her friend so angry her eyes nearly bulged. Without hesitation, she hurled the ink bottle at Elnor and shouted, what on earth is wrong with you? Up front, the swordswoman casually reached out and caught the ink bottle precisely, then asked back, what do you mean? Explaining, the friend voiced her feelings. You've been spacing out all day. Why can't you focus at all? I don't know why, but if you don't tell me, I'm not helping anymore. Back to Elnor, who didn't want to hide it and spoke plainly, I feel attracted to someone. Hearing this, the secretary's hand froze mid-motion. Her eyes widened as if she'd misheard. What did you just say? I said I feel attracted to someone. You just mentioned him. At that, Elnor's face flushed slightly. Her assistant then probed, do you mean Dud Campbell? After that question, Elnor didn't answer, and the two fell into an awkward, embarrassed silence. A second later Elnor's friend snapped out of her daze. She hesitantly pointed forward with a look as if she'd heard that dinosaurs had come back to life. No, wait. You like that rustic fellow? I didn't say I like him, Elnor clarified, but her friend didn't believe it for a moment. She began to lecture, I don't see what's so captivating about him, but if Duke Tristan hears this, what will he say? In response, the swordswoman put the ink bottle back on the desk and reiterated, that old man will definitely be furious, and I'm not infatuated with him. Not that ape. The assistant muttered under her breath, scratched her head, and added, oh well. Anyway, he treats you well, right? Normally you'd be suspicious. As a Tristan heiress you should be more cautious. Elnor nodded in agreement. That's true, but I just want to test him, only need to observe him closely. As she said it, she stared at Dud's photo on the desk. Back with the protagonist, he lay on his bed, staring blankly at the notice in his hand, baffled. The paper read, regrettably, Dud Campbell, we cannot currently determine your class affiliation. The research team is conducting a project to produce the optimal result. You may expect good news in the future. Reading that, our protagonist could only complain to the heavens. Expect what? Just toss me into some old class and forget me. But if I follow the rules, shouldn't I be placed in a special class like Elijah's team? Why are they leaving me out like this? Thinking it over, Dud sat up and checked the system notification. Main Quest 1 completed. Information updated. Main Quest, resolve the incident at the freshman welcome ceremony. D3, reward, exclusive equipment material. The next system quest made Dud reflect. He slowly recalled memories related to the event. The freshman welcome determines a character's class, marksman, warrior, mage, cleric, and so on. Your specialized class is decided by what you focus on. Just as Elijah uses a sword, I'll build my character around strength. Accordingly, I'll obtain exclusive equipment materials compatible with that. At that, Dud tapped the screen. The system interface switched to information on Elnor and Elijah. Elnor's trust in Dud rose from level 2 to level 5, temporarily increasing affection. A special reward is available. She's a standout character. When affection shifts to love, a special event triggers. 3 days remain until the meetup event. For Elijah, her interest in Dud reached level 5, nearly shifting to affection. She's also a standout character. When affection shifts to love, a special event triggers. 3 days remain until the meetup event. Seeing the key character's interest in him rising in the game, Dud could only groan and rub his face. The only problem is that the protagonist's final boss and the main quest events happening simultaneously mean something big is definitely about to go down. Next, as if to soothe Dud's fragile spirit, the system granted him Elnor's reward gift. You have obtained the copy skill. You can copy a target's skill. At that, all of Dud's frustration vanished. His eyes popped wide like a cow's, as if he might have misread it. Oh my god, what's this? Copy a skill? It's insane. I can copy the final boss's skill. Yeah, but using this now would be a huge waste. Even though Elnor is currently at the top of the Academy's food chain, like Elijah as a lead, Elnor is a final boss with growth potential. She'll get more broken skills later. So there's no reason to use the copy skill right now. For now I'll prepare for the event in 3 days. Luckily I already know some things that will help survival. Thinking that, Dud's eyes lit up. Time quickly passed to evening. Scene changes to the old equipment warehouse. Dud was now wearing a black outfit and a half-face mask. He was using a low-tier agility potion, a low-tier shadow mask for increased agility, and low-tier silent step boots. All of these items came from the point shop. Feeling his body grow light and nimble, he nodded in satisfaction. Being able to use the point shop really is great. After bypassing the security measures, he finally reached what players call the nation's treasure farming spot. With that thought, he slowly approached the warehouse and immediately climbed the wall and jumped inside. At the same time he used a stamina recovery biscuit that restored stamina faster than ever. It sounds like an ad, but the effect is real. Now it's time to rummage, Dud whispered to himself and quickly dove into searching through the piled-up old gear before him. While eating the biscuit, he carefully inspected each item. "I found everything else but not the most important thing." Thinking that, he gently pulled out a box and immediately found what he needed. What he was looking for was a golden censer. There it was, the pinnacle of divine artifacts, a censer housing ancient power thousands of years old. Nice. Finally I have everything I need. With that, Dud hurriedly reached to pull the censer out of the pile. However, things never go as smoothly as he thought. Although small, the censer was keeping the structure of the stacked junk stable. As soon as Dud pulled the censer out, that stability was lost and the stack began to wobble. And of course what had to happen did. 1 second later, the entire heap of old items collapsed down, sending up a cloud of dust throughout the warehouse. And by some chance, when the dust cleared, Dud realized he was holding a beautiful girl with glossy black hair. But our protagonist had no time to admire her beauty, he recognized who she was. She was Yuria Greyhaunter, the Chapter 2 boss, nicknamed the Cursed Sword Goddess. What he'd just picked up belonged to her, so she frequented this place. Thinking that, Dud began to sweat nervously. Then Yuria's body flashed and she immediately sprang out of the protagonist's arms. At the same time, Dud received several glaring red notifications: dangerous situation detected, life-threatening, desperate plea activation at S rank. Faced with the alerts, Dud could only say awkwardly, sorry for waking you. Before his words even finished, Yuria's silhouette appeared behind the male lead. She swung the chain attached to her sword directly at Dud with a wind-tearing whoosh. With that single swing the blade shredded the wooden crates in front of them. Dud had to jerk backward to dodge the strike. Faced with Yuria's storm-like, overwhelming attacks, every hair on Dud's body stood on end. Our protagonist had no choice but to flee like a frightened duck. Yuria's attack range was enormous, so even if he wanted to counterattack he couldn't get close to her. Last time was just a match with Elijah, now it's life or death. Even with special tier strength, his body still hurt. Thinking that, Dud realized he couldn't run forever. To protect his little life, he raised his hands placatingly. "It's a misunderstanding, I didn't mean anything, please." Opposite him, Yuria seemed not to hear his words at all. She continued swinging the chained blade like a machine, the sword beginning to gouge the ground into unrecognizable furrows. Meanwhile Dud kept dancing with death, narrowly dodging the blade again and again. But no matter how he evaded, everything has limits. Gradually, Yuria cornered Dud. Then the swordswoman hurled the blade forward with a wind-tearing speed. But for some reason, just before the sword stabbed straight into Dud's face, it suddenly stopped midair and could advance no further. With no choice, Yuria had to yank the sword back toward her. In fact, Dud had predicted this. He knew what to do to avoid being sliced apart. It was all due to a curse Yuria bore. Within a 3.5-step radius, any enemy would be killed, but conversely she could not take another step. Such was the curse's mechanism. Yuria pointed her sword at Dud and whispered, "Would you mind taking 1 step forward?" Dud, of course, immediately understood what she meant and refused at once. "Why? So you can slash me?" "Exactly," Yuria admitted matter-of-factly. Dud looked at the swordswoman's resolute face and nearly wet himself. Was there no way to escape? As he thought that, a strange noise came from Yuria's stomach. Gurgle gurgle. She immediately blushed with embarrassment. But that gave our protagonist a way out. Wait, this is her area, where she isolates herself from others. Even teachers rarely come here. Realizing that, Dud tried a probe. "Hey, do you want a biscuit?" He then took out his stack of stamina recovery biscuits to tempt her. But Yuria was sharp, a bit irritated. She said, "I won't fall for a trap. are you trying to lure me with food? Dud didn't waste words and immediately tossed a biscuit forward, and Uria's body automatically opened her mouth to catch it like a little puppy. Seeing her own action, Uria blushed and stammered, that was a mistake just now, returning to Dud. Her behavior didn't surprise him in the least. Anyone would be hungry in that state, you can't reason with someone who's starving. After filling the swordswoman's stomach, Dud finally breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, I was nearly done for. Behind him, Uria asked between bites, but anyway, who are you? Why are you here? Our protagonist, of course, couldn't say he came to steal, so his big brain scrambled to come up with a cover. A friend asked me to look after you, someone I know asked me to take care of you. Someone you know? Uria said, eyes full of curiosity, waiting for Dud's answer. Meanwhile Dud had a bit of a plan. Saying that might be useful later. There's no way I'd run into Urua this early in the game. With that thought, he continued his performance. Oh right, don't worry, your sister is doing well in the Holy Nation. The Emperor won't pay attention to the two of you for a while, but you already know that. For now you must lay low, I'll return later. Saying that, a memory about the swordswoman's background flashed through his mind. Uria originally came from the Holy Nation, she fled to Elfanti because of the Holy Emperor. Uria's sword is notorious as an evil relic, so as its vessel she must bear the three-step curse, so it's better to tell her about the only relative she has left. She might endure a lot just for that small hope. With that, Dud luckily took the censer and left the warehouse safely. Time quickly passed to the next day, when the new students were assembled on some cliff. Before the group, a very pretty blonde professor smiled and said to them, that is the school, that's the training hall, and that's the magic building. Can everyone see clearly? You all must choose your major and minor at the newcomer ceremony in a few days. Knight, mage, production engineer, and priest, you're all familiar with those, right? Below, one student raised a question, do the tribes study together with the Holy Nation? In response, the teacher nodded and explained, yes, that's correct. The same subjects are taught here for war and representation, so don't think you can transfer out. Heh, I'll explain more about majors. Dud had already learned this information earlier, so he calmly stood with his arms crossed, thinking to himself. This orientation provides more world info, and I can't skip it, otherwise everything I've prepared so far would be pointless. Then a brown-haired student asked a question Dud was also curious about. Headmistress Ophelia, that's the famous void region, right? At that, everyone turned their eyes forward, where they saw an area shrouded in a sheet of red light. They all looked at Ophelia with curiosity. Not making them wait long, Ophelia nodded and explained. Yes, but that place is forbidden, entering it will be punished. As for Dud, he quietly observed the area ahead. It is the void, left after the historic battle between heaven and hell. It's where God's messenger fought the warrior who received demonic power. Hundreds of years have passed, yet the clash of deathly and divine energies continues. This is the primary place where demons roam free. Therefore the Holy Nation, the Tribal Alliance, and the Empire formed a golden triangle to watch over it, including Elfanti and other academies. Nearby the burly red-haired guy eagerly raised his hand and said his intention. Headmistress Ophelia, can we get closer to observe? To his question, Ophelia agreed but warned them. Look, standing right at the edge of the Archangel's protective barrier is fine, we're safe while inside it. Hearing that, Dud couldn't hide his joy. Good, plan now is to go eat lunch and then return so I can do some things. The shield was made by the angel known to leave the mortal realm and the Archangel, whose power is even greater. Thanks to it, students can survive in this dangerous place. Unaware of Dud's thoughts, Headmistress Ophelia cheerfully said, all right, we'll have lunch here. In response, Dud stepped forward and asked softly, can I eat somewhere else? I don't feel comfortable here. Ophelia nodded and reminded the protagonist not to go too far, or he'd get into trouble. Yes, ma'am. Dud replied and quickly left. Not far away, a few students glanced at Dud with annoyed looks. TCH, that country bumpkin's showing off because he's getting attention. Unaware of this, after Dud left he quickly slipped to a secluded spot and pulled out the censer he had stolen from Uria. He filled it with powder from a unicorn's horn, phoenix feathers, and a piece of coral, causing the censer to emit thin wisps of pale purple smoke. Dud puffed at the censer to make it burn brighter. He thought to himself that this was the ultimate portable incense of achievements, he'd come all the way here to use it. It would let him reach things ordinary people wouldn't even dare dream of. Through Dud's eyes, the rising purple smoke formed a swirling vortex in the air, and from inside that vortex, humanoid silhouettes slowly began to appear. They radiated such intense auras that Dud couldn't help but shield his eyes. Then voices came from within the swirl. Where are the allied forces? No, I told you to flatten everything. You just planted the drain and left. Ah, they say it was done by a boy named Jerian. Look over there, kid, did you think digging it up would be enough? Someone grumbled. Hey, the ground's really hard. Another replied, stomping his foot to drive the spade deeper. Then the earlier voice chimed in, isn't that spade you're planting even harder than the earth itself? Saying that, the voice suddenly trailed off as they noticed the protagonist watching them through the vortex. Wait, does that human have a problem? He's been staring at us for a while. Wouldn't it be better if he just stayed silent instead of coming over to bother us? Hearing this, the spiky-haired angel noticed his companion using the chance to rest. His face darkened as he snapped coldly, who told you to stop? Why is your shovel idle? The curly-haired guy could only wearily resume his work and forced a smile. Ah, it's moving now. Beside him the pointy-headed angel remained unsatisfied and shouted louder. No, spread it out evenly, don't just keep digging. You idiot. Behind the barrier, Dud stood silently watching the angels dig. The scene of heaven wasn't quite what he'd expected. Next, an angel pulled up in a huge truck and honked to announce to everyone, attention, holy mud bricks have arrived, line up to unload. At that, the angels all turned to the truck and asked, how many are there in total? Infinite, the long-haired angel said as he pulled back the tarp covering the truck bed. But when a female angel saw him sneaking a cookie, she scolded, hey, why are you secretly eating cookies? The long-haired angel shot her a scornful look. You're the driver, right? And I'm not a soldier, so mind your own business and save your energy for driving, okay? Elsewhere the pointy-headed angel kept shouting at his subordinates. Hey, don't you see the seniors are working hard? Pick up the pace. Hearing that, the curly-haired angel hurried over to volunteer for the brick molding duty. At least that seemed easier than shoveling dirt and didn't involve getting yelled at by superiors. Oh dear, top-tier merchant Elnor, leave those bricks to me. In another corner, a young angel handed a brick to his captain and asked, Captain, hasn't the food shipment arrived yet? The captain's voice sounded embarrassed in reply. Sorry, the food truck broke down on the way. They're fixing it, so it'll be a bit late. Please wait a little. Back with Dud, witnessing the scene he could only force a smile. So that's why angels aren't always free to descend to the mortal realm. If I had to describe these angels, I'd say they look more like military personnel, wouldn't I? They were divided into squads and ranks with chains of command. So it turns out this game's other world has its own set of rules. I can only meet angels after passing Chapter 2, and direct interaction with high-ranking angels is only possible after that. I know what they want, it's something very simple. With that in mind, Dud laid out countless enticing food boxes before him and called out loudly, wow. Thanks for the food. On the other side, the group of angels began to notice Dud, or rather, the delicious pile of food he had brought out. That guy's still watching us. Hey, what's he holding? He's eating so heartily, can we beg him for a bite? The curly-haired angel stammered the question, but the long-haired angel brushed him off, you're not qualified to descend yet. What are you daydreaming about? Hurry up. Dud knew the laboring angels must be starving, so he invited them. Sir Angel, please eat well before doing heavy work. I'm afraid you might faint otherwise. Then, Dud's words seemed to trigger some rule of the world, and all the food before him was transported into the hands of the angels behind the gate. Seeing this, everyone brightened. Even the usually grumpy pointy-headed angel cheerfully told the group, this fellow, fine, take a 10-minute break, everyone. After inspecting the food, the angel's eyes lit up. Just some rolls? There's steak too, wow, a thoughtful human. Watching their delighted reactions, Dud stroked his chin smugly. The rules of this world differ from my physical worlds, so a single serving of mine is more than enough for all of them. Time passed quickly. After they finished the food Dud provided, the pointy-headed angel nodded and praised him. Haha, that hit the spot, perfect for folks doing manual labor like us. Bring that over here. What? Dud asked curiously. The sensor next to you, you're doing this for something you want from us, right? Let me bless it, bring it over. Hearing that, Dud wasted no time and rushed the sensor closer to the gate. The angel chuckled, all right, what do you want? But keep it reasonable, I'll do my best to meet your expectations. The reward from the angel startled Dud, things were going smoother than he'd expected. Wow, all that without negotiation? I even prepared a bargaining token. Is everything in the original story this easy? Dud thought to himself. Before he could voice the question, the angel seemed to read his thoughts and spoke. Why wouldn't I treat you well? It's not like anyone else. You're thinking that, aren't you? I can explain. I can see you've been well informed. You possess an interesting skill, but you've failed to develop it. Even a little cultivation will yield benefits in the future. You should start nurturing it now. The angel spoke with certainty, making Dud swallow nervously under his gaze. Is this clairvoyance? Perhaps. With a single look, he seemed to know the true nature of things. Is he referring to that gift? Does he mean my attribute, the affection of evil? Ignoring Dud's thoughts, the angel continued, that gift is far stronger than you think. How you forge and utilize it is up to you. Because of it, you'll be caught by a monster that's cruel yet strangely friendly. Hearing that, Dud had no doubts left. Damn. I knew it. After sealing that sensor I learned all the tactics and abilities I could use. I definitely need to find the optimal channel for survival. Returning to the point of view of the Uncle Angel, for some reason he suddenly reverted to his youthful form with long hair and a smooth robe. An ordinary human immediately fell into a state of fear. But you seem awfully calm, huh? I see a magnificent man taking shape. I suppose I no longer need to worry, then. I've finished blessing you. Ah yes, thank you. Dud responded naively, since all he had seen was the uncle sit and speak for a while without displaying any power, yet the blessing was already complete. Nearby, another angel, seeing the uncle talking to Dud, asked the sergeant, why are you telling a mere human things like that? The Uncle Angel replied with a slightly annoyed look, have you finished moving those holy mud clods? Ah, yes, I'm nearly done. The angel answered and hurried away toward Dud. To be honest, Dud still didn't fully understand the angel's cryptic words, cruel yet strangely friendly. What on earth does that mean? And a magnificent man, is he overestimating me? Dud wondered. Meanwhile, before vanishing, the Uncle Angel cheered him on, believe in yourself, even the smallest things I pass on to you. Immediately after that remark, the gate in front of Dud was withdrawn. Back to Dud, he stood stunned by those words, I'm just trying not to die, that's all. Still, it was a warning from an angel, so he should consider it carefully. With that thought, he turned to inspect the sensor to see what had been blessed. Quickly, notification windows appeared before his eyes. Sacred Sensor, Grade C, contains special power from a divine entity of another world, grants 2 skills, Austerity, Grade C, uses a small amount of mana to temporarily convert all bonus points into reserve. 20-second cooldown, can evolve via Proof of Destiny. Protective Shield, Grade C, uses a small amount of mana to create a one-time shield and grant a beneficial effect. 20-second cooldown, can evolve via Holy Mark. Reading these descriptions, Dud was surprised that a little food could buy such pleasant blessings. That angel gave some really useful boons. The Constitution stats scales with HP, so it will directly help boost my survivability. My Desperate Life Plea skill also raises stats considerably. I'll make full use of these skills. And the most important part is evolution. In this world, crafted things can naturally improve performance. Getting something like this so early in the story is extremely lucky. But the issue is both skills only require a small amount of mana to use. It's a perfect dream for someone without any mana-related attributes. If I currently can't use much mana, I'll need to find another way to supplement it, and that's why I came here. Dud now stood in a place resembling a plaza, surrounded by countless other students. The person in front of him complained when he saw Dud standing there in a daze. Is being unfocused one of your strengths or what? You said you wanted to form a 2-person team, right? You do know what a 2-person team is, don't you? So where's your teammate? In reply, Dud smiled confidently and said she'd be here soon. His confidence made the staffer chuckle. Haha, who would come for nobody like you? Seeing the skeptical look, Dud reaffirmed, I'm not lying, this place will be packed soon. My teammate isn't just famous, wait and see. Saying that, he checked his watch, thinking that according to the plot she should be arriving now. As if answering Dud's wish, the swordswoman Elijah's voice suddenly rang out from behind, hello, is this the monster research room? At the familiar voice, our protagonist turned, raised a hand to greet her. This change in Dud's behavior was due to his encounter with the Uncle Angel. He didn't want to be tied to the protagonist, but he might have changed, especially after the Angel's advice. Across from him, Dud's greeting made Elijah feel a bit strange, and Dud also proactively followed up on what he'd mentioned earlier about getting to know each other. It's still fine to get acquainted now, right? Back to Elijah. She stood there stunned by Dud's words. You're extraordinary, Dud. Nothing you try here ever succeeds, so now you remember me. Because of that tactic to make them jealous, I've been harassed so much. How delusional is he, really? She thought to herself. Time passed quickly as the scene shifted to the simulated dungeon at Elfanti Academy. Dud and Elijah were paired up and currently inside a simulated battle. Seeing the red eyes flashing in the dark, the swordswoman Elijah grew concerned and asked the protagonist, Dud, are you really sure about this? Hearing her, our protagonist from behind complained with a groggy expression, have a little faith, didn't you want to be friends with me? Remember when we first met you wanted to beat me up? You do remember, even though I was the one who got hit. Elijah replied hesitantly. Then, as if sensing the monsters beginning to attack ahead, Dud immediately issued orders, if you want to be friends, follow my lead. At 9 o'clock, there are 3 in total. Following his warning, Elijah hurriedly turned to 9 o'clock and indeed saw a wolf lunging toward her with jaws full of fangs. However, thanks to the prior alert she only needed to swing her sword to easily sever the wolf's head. But before she could rest, Dud from behind cheerfully added, there are 2 more coming from above. Time sped up, now they faced giant bats. Using his knowledge, Dud quickly recognized the monster type and offered a counter, their weak point is on top, aim for the body, not the wings. Hearing that, Elijah in front swiftly swung her sword and sliced the bat in 2. But she felt a bit irritated and ground her teeth. Stop giving orders and help me a little, will you? Dud seemed not to hear the complaint and continued issuing commands. 2 throwing knives will fly at you from the left and right, just knock them aside. Enduring for 10 seconds, Elijah swung her sword and deflected the 2 daggers that flew at her to the sides. Dud then smiled and gave the next instruction. Good. Next is a paralyzing toxin. There's a sprayer on the right, destroy it quickly. Next, dodge the arrow that will come from my direction, just stand still. 3, 2, 1, there's an attack from behind. A rapid series of commands came so fast that Elijah began to lose track. She barely turned back in time and luckily blocked the blow from a giant one-eyed monster. Its heavy strike pushed her small frame backward. Elijah felt furious that all the heavy lifting had fallen to her while Dud from behind merely pointed and issued orders. Unable to contain her frustration, she shouted, if you know all that, shouldn't you do it instead? We'd level up faster if we worked together. In truth, Dud didn't not want to help, he simply couldn't even if he wanted to. Look, I want to help too but can't. I'm a lousy character with F-rank stats across the board. To explain, in a simulated match there's no murderous intent, so the desperate survival skill can't activate. These are merely artificial entities executing pre-programmed actions. Because the desperate survival skill isn't omnipotent, I must quickly raise my stats. Dud silently reminded himself, while the swordswoman Elijah in front shouted to rally herself, come on. Then she tightened her grip on the sword and charged at the protagonist with a somewhat fierce look. The action made the smile on Dud's face freeze. Am I being too mean? But contrary to what he thought, Elijah was actually protecting him, because a monster was sneaking up on Dud from behind. Fortunately Elijah reacted in time. With a single stroke she easily severed the one-eyed creature's head, saving Dud from a disaster. The sight left Dud momentarily astonished. But immediately after, countless multicolored paper streamers shot out from both sides, accompanied by a congratulatory chime. Too fast, you've broken the record ahead. Hearing that, Elijah's eyes widened in disbelief and she asked, what's going on? I fought alone but broke the record. This is a 2-person stage, what on earth is happening? In response, the protagonist just smiled calmly. Was it luck? The next area will be a bit tougher. Let's keep going. Good luck falling on your face. His nonchalant words stoked the fire of Elijah's fury. She ground her teeth, eyes glinting as if she wanted to eat Dud alive. At the same time, in a special observation room, professors watched Dud and Elijah's battle through some magical device. After watching their performance, a girl dressed as the head mage of the magic department, Perse, nodded and admitted, it seems we should allocate more budget for simulated battles next year. Do you think so? Conrad replied, gently placing a hand on some man's head and answering, probably. This is the department's design, right? More importantly, it seems I'm quite lucky the person I'm watching is performing it. Hearing this, Perse was a bit surprised. You mean that girl? The candidate for the next round? They're improving extremely fast, worth paying attention to. Conrad, knowing Perce had misunderstood, clarified, not the girl, him. Dud Campbell. Upon hearing that, Perce glanced at Dud with some distaste. Criticizing that island rocket, huh? Isn't he just clinging to the warrior candidate? Conrad sighed nearby, realizing Perce knew nothing. This is the problem with pentwirling mages like her. A warrior candidate can never break records alone. Any ordinary person would see the warrior candidate as stronger and the key figure in battle. But he is the true key, the teammate's position, the way he issues commands with perfect timing, the seamless support. Each of his actions displays terrifyingly accurate judgment, as if he'd been on battlefields thousands of times. Thinking this, Conrad couldn't help but suggest, "Hey Perce, let's make a bet." Scene shift to Dud and Elijah. Suddenly they heard Conrad's voice over the speakers. "I am Conrad Balthador of the Knights Department. After observing you two, I've become interested. The head of the magic department and I have bet. Can you two break the record we set as freshmen? If you truly succeed, I'll grant you the right to make one request of Perce. But if you feel pressured by this, I won't force you. Your current record is already an astonishing achievement." The request was nearly impossible from the start. Dud didn't need the professor to say more, he immediately accepted. "No problem, we can do it." Dud's quick agreement left Elijah behind him stunned. Meanwhile, Professor Perce found Dud a bit arrogant and criticized him. "Oh, look at him." Unfazed, Conrad chimed in, "I bet you'll win. Now begin." Scene changed to the training area. At this time, Elnor's close friend complained, "What's going on? I get that you came here to blow off steam, but you've been overdoing it lately. What's really happening with you?" In front, Elnor, her face drenched in sweat from training, spoke up, "There's something I want to remember. When I was little, my mother taught me this technique, but I don't remember it anymore, so I'm practicing it again from the beginning. A demon exists in Tristan bloodline. This dark rumor has two sides, extraordinary, inhuman talent they possess, and on the other hand, occasional bouts of madness, sudden violent outbursts, and the collapse of reason. That's why, although members of the Tristan family achieve extraordinary accomplishments, their later years are often filled with tragedy." As Elaine drank, her close friend asked, "That isn't serious, right? Isn't it?" Elnor shook her head. "Don't worry your head about it, I don't care." "Really? Is that true?" The assistant looked skeptical, which irritated Elnor slightly. "I told you, nothing can bother me right now." Hearing that, Elnor's friend immediately blurted out, "I'll report the information you asked for right away. I just heard from a junior. Dud Campbell is currently paired with the next term's warrior candidate, Elijah, the girl who fought Dud before." Elnor frowned and asked, "You mean the two of them are partnered?" The assistant nodded. "Yeah, probably because the simulated match requires two-person teams." Across from her, Elnor closed her eyes, trying to calm down, then exhaled long, "I understand. Take me there, you're the one who said you didn't care." The assistant shouted, but whether she noticed or not, the boy downstairs had been completely twisted by Elnor, returning to Dud's group's location. At this point the swordswoman Elijah truly couldn't understand what was going on in our protagonist's head, that he could so easily accept Professor Conrad's challenge. She asked, "What are you going to do? I know you have skill, but is it worth challenging the all-time record?" "Yes." Dud answered calmly without a hint of hesitation. This made Elijah look at him with suspicion. His confidence was certainly odd. Was there any reason for him to do this? For Dud, of course he's a veteran of this game. So this small challenge wasn't a problem. Targeting their weak points would be easier because the artificial monsters follow consistent movement patterns. But he couldn't tell her that. Dud thought silently, then answered casually, "Because you're here with me." His words made the swordswoman's face flush slightly as she exclaimed that he was unbelievable. In the observation room, Professor Conrad, seeing the two ready, spoke, "This is Conrad. Are you ready?" "Ready." They answered in unison. Hearing that, the head of the Knights Department nodded. "Perfect. There's one final step to adjust difficulty. The higher you set it, the more bonus points you get." Without hesitation, Dud immediately requested it be set to the highest difficulty. Nearby, the head of the magic department, Perce, couldn't help but be annoyed by the protagonist's confidence. Her brows furrowed as she complained, "Unbelievable, these new students. I like the energy, but this is too much. The highest difficulty is almost real combat. They might die during the challenge." Dud seemed to hear it over the speakers and replied, "Even so, I think we should try." From Conrad's perspective, seeing Dud so confident, he decided to trust him once and agreed, so do as he wishes. Then he officially started the simulated combat system. The loud noises made Elijah's lovely face break out in beads of sweat from worry. Beside her, Dud smiled and turned to reassure her, "Don't worry, the warrior candidate is reliable, after all." As for Professor Peirce, she was happily sipping a cup of tea brought by a subordinate while complaining to Conrad, incredulous at him. In response to her complaint, Conrad reminded her, "Is this the first time you've done this? Didn't we do the same for the previous freshman cohort?" Conrad's explanation failed to placate Peirce and only irritated her further. "But this is different, they could actually die this time." Unlike her attitude, Conrad still trusted Dud's group. "Just wait, Professor Peirce, I'm sure he has a reason to be so confident. Even if things get dangerously out of hand, we can just intervene and rescue them, right? All right, slaughter mode activated. Prove yourselves, new students." At that moment, from above countless kinds of monsters of every variety dove straight toward Dud and Elijah with bloodthirsty eyes. Seeing the scene, the swordswoman Elijah could only shout in frustration, "Damn it, let's go." Elsewhere, the design department staffer was inwardly crying, "Our design department is doomed." As for Dud, the more dangerous the monsters, the more excited he became, because the system had issued a glaring red alert, "Danger detected. We have determined the danger level, life-threatening." Next, his desperate plea skill activated at maximum level, filling Dud with energy. Without any hesitation, he swung his sword swiftly toward a falling rhinoceros-like monster. The protagonist's swing immediately produced a blade of light, cleaving off the giant creature's head in a single stroke. Seeing this, Professor Conrad in the observation room couldn't help but shout, "I knew it, this is exactly what I've been looking for. See that, Peirce?" The shout startled Peirce so much she spat out her tea, while the design guy's eyes went wide. At the same time, watching Dud's power dispel her worries, the swordswoman Elijah seemed to relax. "I knew it, Dud could do it." Professor Peirce hurried to the screen. After witnessing Dud cutting through the monsters, she was dumbfounded. "Wait, how could this happen? He was completely useless earlier." In response, Professor Conrad voiced his thoughts, "I thought he was just pretending, but I don't blame you. If I had known about his skill transformation, I'd have reacted the same way." Over time, the monsters would grow stronger, and so would he, meaning their development paralleled one another. Thus, the training match began to unfold overwhelmingly in favor of Dud's two-person team. The number of monsters in the training chamber rapidly dwindled. On their side, the swordswoman Elijah had plunged her blade deep into the body of a giant red spider and held it fast. She shouted, "Do it, Dud." Hearing that, Dud immediately used her shoulder as a springboard, and leapt high into the air. He then unleashed Tristan swordsmanship, raining countless slashes across the red spider's body in the blink of an eye, forcing it to accept defeat along with the other monsters. After they felled the creature, an announcement sounded, "Congratulations. This is extraordinary power. Dud Campbell, Elijah Chrysanax, you two have succeeded in breaking the all-time record." But it wasn't over yet. The giant red spider wasn't quite dead. Before collapsing, it mustered its last strength and swung a massive leg straight at the protagonist as he was still reveling in victory. "Dud, duck!" Elijah shouted from behind. But before the spider could carry out its plan, its body suddenly exploded into countless pieces. The one who had acted was Professor Conrad, who had just rushed over. "Congratulations. It seems you've set a record that won't be broken for years. I never expected we'd have a freshman capable of clearing Elfante's artificial monsters as if taking a walk. Thank you for your effort, warrior candidate." Saying that, the professor sheathed his sword and teased the approaching mage Peirce. "I win, Peirce. Enjoy that." Peirce replied irritably. Next, the two received the rewards from the professors as agreed. Looking at the paper in her hand, Elijah gasped and exclaimed, "Permission to rent one item from the site warehouse and the right to request any favor from the head of the magic department. That's amazing." Beside her, Dud glanced at her paper and remarked, "This isn't accessible to ordinary freshmen. Are we getting the same reward?" After celebrating, Elijah grew curious and asked the male lead, "Hey Dud, I've noticed, how do you always stay so calm? No matter what happens, you act like you already know how things will play out, or like you've planned it all. Your behavior gives me that impression." As she said this, Elijah put her fist forward and smiled. "Hey, guys do that with friends, right? I mean the fist over there." Seeing this, Dud sighed, "Well, say what you will, but he did bump fists with Elijah." With that, Elijah's curiosity about Dud rose to level 5, nearly trust level. "See you tomorrow then, Dud." Elijah said excitedly and hurried off. Dud watched her retreating figure and shook his head. He couldn't tell if she was friendly or strange. Then a voice suddenly sounded behind him. Is that so? Hearing that, Dud turned his head and yelped in surprise. Student Council President. Across from him, Elnor ignored Dud's startle and bluntly asked, "Do you like me?" At that question, Dud began to sweat bullets. The only thing comforting him was that no red alert had appeared. His desperate plea hadn't activated. It seemed she didn't intend anything by it, but wait, wasn't this obvious? I'm not her boyfriend. When Dud didn't answer, Elnor coldly asked again, I'll ask once more, do you like me? At the second question, the system cautiously warned Dud, danger detected. Danger detected. The alert made sweat soak his shirt back. Every hair on his body stood on end. He told himself he had to say something. Thinking quickly to save his skin, Dud blurted a lie. Student Council President, although I've been training with Elijah, I still want to meet you. His words left the female antagonist stunned. As soon as Dud finished, he privately cursed himself. What are you doing? Dud Campbell, did you actually make that believable? Idiot. Elnor seemed to interpret something and smiled faintly. So you're saying you've missed me all this time? Hearing that, Dud nodded quickly like a pecking chicken and played along. Yes, exactly that. Why? Elnor asked suspiciously. Dud was left speechless. He wanted to avoid her, not pine for her, so how could he explain that? Dud began to stammer, unable to answer. Then, as if remembering something, Elnor smoothed her hair and continued, forget it, maybe it's just one of those friendships. I get it, it's because I saved you on that ship, right? Just remember that priority list. Ahead, Dud's face looked like someone who'd just come out of a cave, completely lost. What list is she talking about? What's going on? Dud wondered to himself, but before he could think of an answer, Elijah handed him an invitation and said, don't worry about that, I'm here to give you this. For Dud, the letter made him a little fearful. He wondered, is this a love letter or a challenge? What is this? Nothing like this happened in the original story. Unaware of these thoughts, Elnor looked slightly embarrassed, glanced away, and explained, I plan to give this to you tomorrow, but remember to open it when you're alone. With that, the student council president hurried off. She left Dud behind, who mechanically accepted the invitation in a daze. Time passed quickly. After returning to his private room, Dud immediately opened and read the letter. He quickly understood Elnor's intention. So she wants me to be her companion? Tomorrow is the freshman welcome party, I forgot about that. Becoming her companion isn't a big deal, I just need to spend time with her at the welcome party. The only problem is the penalty. If I refuse her offer, not only will her favorability drop, but it could also make others hostile toward me. As he thought this, a knock sounded at the door, catching Dud's attention. He went out and found Elijah at the door. I thought it was you, Dud murmured. Elijah's eyes showed a hint of delight. She stroked her chin and smiled. You pick things up pretty fast. Then she handed the protagonist an invitation. This again? Dud complained, prompting a curious look from Elijah. What do you mean? Did someone give this to you? No, what I mean is, what is this? Dud hurriedly corrected himself. Internally, Dud already suspected what the invitation contained and nearly died on the spot. Don't tell me she came with a request too. From Elijah's perspective, she didn't elaborate and instead said playfully, what do you think? A surprise. I decided during that simulated battle, I have to run. It's all thanks to the rules set by the student council president, so read it quickly. After saying that, the heroine immediately ran off, leaving Dud standing there stunned. In the end, he could only clutch his head and return to his room to inspect the letter. Why are there so many strange people in this world? What is this anyway? I think it might be another companion request. If it were from Elijah it could be a challenge request, but she said it's a surprise, so I'm dead. This is the final boss companion request for the protagonist. Isn't this something that shouldn't happen under the rules? Couldn't they give me an easier choice? If I pick Elnor, I'll be viewed as the villain by the protagonist. If I pick Elijah, I'll make myself the enemy final boss and might die because of the priority list or whatever. What if I refuse both? I don't know what to do. This probably happened because both are still in the interest stage. Big problem, should I accept both? The more Dud thought about it, the more he felt that choosing one and abandoning the other would feel like death itself calling him. Time flew until the day of the freshman welcome party. The scene shifted to an extremely luxurious grand hall, now filled with countless students. Someone's voice began to echo, hey, aren't you a student from Class A? I'm a student from Class A, Professor, they're here. Among the crowd, the radiant swordswoman Elijah fanned herself to ward off the hall's stifling heat. She complained, "Phew, so many people, this is like a pigsty. But anyway, thanks for coming with me, Dud." She said this as she turned to look at the protagonist. Dud, whose hair was parted to both sides, replied with a cold expression. Cut to some fountain. Another Dud with a different hairstyle was sitting there. To explain, the Dud who went with Elijah was just a decoy the protagonist had created. It was a clone image worth 1,000 points that Dud bought from the point shop. It allows creating a duplicate, and the original's beneficial effects apply to the clone. At the same time, the system sent the protagonist an event notice: the pair date has decided to date both of you. Wonderful. But don't get discovered until the event ends. Failure will incur a penalty. Back with Dud, looking at his info on the system screen, he sighed, "I've had to spend all my points. Even if it's only for me, maybe it'll work." But even with many people attending, this plan could still fail horribly. If someone sees me and the clone in the same place, I'll be exposed. I'll set the clone's personality to the cold gentleman option. Before Dud could finish his thought, a ferocious roar from some monster trapped in an iron cage sounded not far away, making Dud flinch. It was just an external monster. It seemed they intended to experiment on it and then it would escape. That would trigger the main event, and all I need to do is survive. With Elnor and Elijah, it shouldn't be too bad, right? Next. For some reason the system suddenly issued another reminder: your pheromone is no longer just a boy. Purchased. Applied. The notice left Dud stunned, not understanding what was happening. Then at the same time Elnor appeared. "You're here. What's that smell? Did you spray something?" She frowned as she spoke. Dud awkwardly replied, "No, the flowers here have a natural fragrance." Before Dud could finish, Elnor's face suddenly flushed bright red. She admitted, "I know this scent is from you, but it's driving me crazy." Seeing Elnor's flushed, aroused face, Dud's biological alarm blared non-stop. The warning made him flail his hands as if trying to wipe the scent off himself. "What the hell are you talking about, pheromones? Please stop," he screamed inwardly. But in response to his plea came a disheartening system message: the pheromone effect has been applied to the target Elnor. The target is exerting all effort not to be attracted to you. Beside him, icy Elnor began to flirt with the protagonist and said, "Dud Campbell, I wonder why I only realized this now, but you're more masculine than I thought." Hearing this, Dud couldn't be happy. He felt death drawing another step closer. He silently prayed, "Please stop." Next, to break the tension, Dud suggested they go to the event. "Shall we check out the nearby booths?" Elnor saw no problem with the idea and nodded. "Okay, lead the way." Back in Dud's perspective, his offer to take Elnor out had been planned. By now, the clone and Elijah have probably met. "I must make sure we don't run into them. I hope nothing happens." Maybe nothing will happen if this continues. All the clone and I need to do is escort the two of them. Thinking that, Dud suggested again. "Hey, how about we get some snacks at that stall?" Upon hearing this, Elnor glanced at him with a suggestive look and replied, "All right." Then Dud led Elnor to the grill stall and said, "Want to try this wild boar skewer?" This was the worst suggestion for Elnor. She takes great care of her figure. Dud planned to lessen the pheromone's effect. That was his intention. However, as if fate conspired with him and this villainess, her eyes brightened and she asked softly, "How did you know I like this? Is it just a coincidence?" Hearing that, Dud began to scream inwardly. "Oh God, if she sees I don't like wild boar and I have to both maintain the relationship and keep my distance, I also have to make sure Elijah stays as far away as possible." After that, they went to a stall selling decorative accessories. Looking at the sparkling items, Elnor stopped and said to Dud, "Hey, it looks like they sell accessories here. Do you need anything?" Dud immediately declined and instead offered, "No, let me buy something for you." That was his outward words, but inwardly he thought, buy a gift for Elnor? No way, I must minimize her affection, give her the worst present. With that in mind, he eyed a button and picked it up. "This button will do, what do you think?" Normally, when a guy gives a girl a gift like this, he'd probably end up blocked, but the pheromone's effect on Elnor was stronger than Dud expected. Even receiving such a gift, she happily accepted. "I do need a button for my new uniform." She smiled, while Dud bit his lip, thinking this was going to be difficult. Next, they paused their wandering and sat down to drink in an area nearby. Then Elnor asked, thinking back, "Have you chosen your major yet?" Dud nodded and shared, I've decided, I'm going into theology. The protagonist's choice made the villainess curious, and she advised, theology? Haven't you reconsidered? With your talent, it would be a waste not to join the Knights department. No, there's something I want to study in theology. Dud replied, thinking there was a reason for his choice. My life and the downfall of the Holy Knights are necessary for my survival. They are crucial to achieving the outcome I want. It's about the secret organization's event, an event that will happen in the future. The chapter's boss is particularly weak against Holy Knights. Opposite him, Elnor grew even more curious and asked, something you want to study? Dud answered, to protect what is precious, one must study there. Elnor asked what Dud wanted to protect. Hearing this, Dud turned on his acting mode. His face grew thoughtful, as if recalling something. Since I was a child, I've wanted to protect that. Across from him, Elnor asked if it had anything to do with why he was so involved with me. Yes, it does. Dud nodded. Before he could explain further, Elnor interrupted him. I know the Tristan family curse well. I'm talking about the curse that turns all our members into lunatics. Hearing this, Dud shrugged and asked, isn't the only way to stop it through mental training? Dud's words made Elnor's eyes grow cold. She stared at the protagonist and said in an icy voice, you know how to deal with it. To that question, Dud had no intention of hiding anything, so he said plainly, the angel's blessing is a miracle where two archangels grant their blessing to a person, or so they say. The villainess nodded in agreement with Dud's solution. Yes, it's that difficult. So even though the Tristan family has achieved much, we still fear it. Then how can you be so close to me? Why are you always present when someone tries to assassinate me? What are you, exactly? Back to Dud. He fell quiet for a moment, then answered, the thing I want to protect is you. At those words, Elnor's shoulders trembled slightly. She asked, what am I to you that you must protect me? Dud replied with firm conviction, if I can't protect you, I will die. Yes, I have no other reason. Elnor brushed her hair and forced a small laugh, I knew it. But you really are strange. Dud exhaled heavily and complained, I've said it many times, I told her the whole truth without hiding anything. Hopefully this will satisfy her curiosity. Dud prayed inwardly, and at the same time, elsewhere. Dud's double and Elijah, each holding a glass of wine, descended to the basement where countless monsters used for experiments were kept. They walked in silence. For Elijah, Dud's behavior seemed a bit different today. Is he angry with me? Why isn't he talking? To break the silence, Elijah spoke up, why are we going to the basement? Behind her, Dud remained silent. This made Elijah feel even more awkward. I should get closer to him to learn more about the Tristan family. I don't know what to do with someone like him. I know nothing about men, it's maddening. She looked around and frowned. What kind of hellish place is this? It's full of living monsters. It seems they're used as experiment subjects for students. The professors are socially irresponsible to keep them in the basement like this. Elnia complained. Before she was distracted by the growl of a monster, she approached the cage holding that creature and peered inside carefully. There were larger monsters here. What? They're not even bound. Elijah's voice was full of suspicion. At the same time, suddenly a device mounted on the upper rim of the cage flashed a red light. Then a massive explosion followed. Fortunately Dud's double reacted in time, lunging forward to grab Elijah and leap to the side. But the blast's impact was enormous. It even made the entire hall tremble violently. Back at Elijah's position, she still seemed stunned that Dud had used himself to shield her from the explosion. Why? Elijah asked without thinking. It's my job. Dud replied coldly. Right after saying that, he fainted and collapsed to one side. Huh? What do you mean? Dud. Elijah called out, but before she could call again she sensed murderous intent aimed at her. It turned out that because of the explosion, the monsters kept for experiments had escaped, their eyes glowed red and their gaze, full of brutality, fixed on Elijah. Yet Elijah showed no fear. She grabbed a length of iron strewn on the ground and spoke up. Anyway, thank you for protecting me. Now it's my turn to protect you. Turning to Dud's location, he received a system alert. Main monster task has appeared. Suppress the situation quickly. If casualties are too high, you will suffer severe script penalties. Reward, exclusive equipment crafting materials. Seeing this notification, Dud didn't hesitate and stood up immediately. I have work to do, Guild Master. I need you to find one of the wardens. Behind him, Elnor didn't yet understand why Dud reacted that way and wanted to ask. However, our protagonist cut her off with a serious expression. Please, we have to protect the students. With that, he sprinted down toward the lower basement, recalled his double, and called to the swordswoman. Elnor, in front of the recently released monsters, asked, "Is that all there is?" Meanwhile, Elijah, armed only with an iron rod, had taken down all the monsters that attacked her without injury. Seeing Dud approaching, she breathed a sigh of relief. "You're awake?" "Thank heavens, but I missed a big monster. It's probably somewhere on the first floor. We can stop it quickly. I think I'll rest a bit." At this, Elijah's body wavered and she had to force herself to steady her stance with the iron bar. Although she defeated the monsters, she seemed nearly exhausted. Back to Dud's perspective. Hearing this, he deduced the escaped creature must be the bear from before. The script priority is paramount now. If we fail, I'll face heavy penalties. I must prevent that. Cut to the main banquet hall. As Dud suspected, the escaped monster was a huge, ferocious bear. It was trying to attack the freshmen, but a man among the group quickly used his magic to form a barrier enclosing everyone. "Hold out until the professors and knights arrive. Make sure the barrier doesn't break." No sooner had he finished than the giant bear roared in fury and slammed its massive paws against the barrier, creating spreading cracks in all directions. In another corner of the hall, Elnor watched the beast anxiously and said, "Currently neither the headmaster nor Professor Conrad are here." In response, the warden beside her shook his head, "Then we cannot lose the angel's blessing." His words angered Elnor, who retorted, "You call yourself a warden? There are still students here." The warden shrugged, not taking it seriously. Such remarks are heavy coming from a professor. "Miss Elnor, a high-tier barrier like the angel's blessing isn't something just anyone can use. The knights will arrive soon, let's wait for them. This is why I try to stop them experimenting on those monsters. I knew we shouldn't have given that authority to the Tristan family." Beside her, Elnor could only grit her teeth. But at that moment, Dud suddenly darted past them both like a gust of wind. He even snatched the warden's necklace and shouted, "I'll handle this." From behind, the warden's eyes widened as he asked, "Who was that?" "Give it back at once, he's just a student." "Do you even know what the angel's blessing is?" Ignoring his shouting, Dud quickly pulled out his censer and tossed the necklace inside. The system immediately confirmed, the supreme holy relic has fused with the warden's bead chain, skills unlocked, asceticism, holy shield. Danger detected, each threat is life-threatening, desperate survival activated at rank S. Dud then launched into a long slide, rushing past the giant bear toward the man casting the barrier. Seeing Dud, the man anxiously said, "Wait, why aren't you running?" In response, Dud urged, "I'll stall, get the students out of here." Then he turned back to face the giant bear, which was winding up a massive paw to strike him. Without hesitation, Dud used asceticism to convert all secondary attributes into physical strength. Next, Dud activated Holy Shield. A radiant crucifix symbol appeared before him, shining brilliantly. Then the phantom image of two pairs of wings manifested, enveloping him and forming a protective barrier. Thanks to it, the bear's heavy strike could not reach Dud. Around them, guests witnessing the scene gasped, "Is that the angel's blessing? How can an ordinary student use that?" Elsewhere, the warden tore at his hair and cursed that fool. Does he know even official wardens must undergo countless prayers to use it? Back to Elnor's viewpoint, she had been ready to charge forward with her sword, but when she saw that skill manifest, her feet suddenly stopped. After everything that's happened, I'm not surprised anymore. I've seen him hide so much. These thoughts raced through Elnor's mind. Not knowing whose side the warden was on, she heard him bitterly say, "Why couldn't that stupid monster break a simple barrier? And a student was the one maintaining it. TCH. His words annoyed Elnor, who turned and snapped, "Are you really a professor? You won't even help, what are you doing?" By Elnor's count, Elijah had just arrived after a short rest. She immediately dealt the warden a chopping strike to the neck, knocking him out. "Sorry, student council president, he was useless to us." Ignoring Elijah's action, Elnor asked, "Why were you late?" "I was unconscious in the basement. I just came up." At that, Elijah's body began to tremble as if still not fully recovered. She looked ahead and said, "Forget that, Dud, did he really dare to use the angel's blessing right here? He's not even a warden. They say it takes at least 10 years of training to use it. How could this happen?" Elijah's voice was full of disbelief. Elnor stood beside her, and hearing this she recalled what Dud had told her over tea. 10 years before holy power can be wielded? Elnor's expression grew complex, and with just a glance, Elijah seemed to guess what she was thinking and continued. Even if it was the angel's blessing that had been recorded, there should still be limits to how much he could control. You must feel very lucky, right? He did all of this for the Tristan family and for you. Otherwise there'd be no reason for him to do any of it. Elnor wasn't stupid, so of course she vaguely suspected something. I've had a bad feeling about him from the start. He's really a strange one. Within Elnor's dark, inner world, it seemed a ray of light was appearing. Across from them, Dud gritted his teeth to maintain his holy shield while the giant bear treated him like a punching bag, its massive arms swinging like machinery, making Dud sweat profusely. But poor, stupid bear, it's focusing on the protagonist without realizing who the real threat is. To everyone's astonishment, Elnor drew her sword, and dashed toward the beast like a flash of lightning, and plunged straight into it. The powerful strike flattened the creature's massive body to the ground, cracking the floor in countless places from the impact. But that blow only caused the giant bear tremendous pain. It wasn't enough to bring it down. Enraged, it charged at Elnor like a tank, each step shaking the ground. Opposite it, Elnor softly closed her eyes, drew her sword slowly back, then thrust forward with wind-tearing speed. Her stabbing strikes were like a burst of machine gun fire hitting the monster. Whether the giant bear had been given some stimulant or not, despite countless wounds pouring blood, it still barreled forward crazily. Seeing this, Elnor spun and activated a skill. Her blade immediately formed a semicircular wave of energy that sliced straight at the beast, blasting its massive body backward and finally causing a huge explosion. Beside her, Dud stood stunned. Was that Tristan's sword technique? It was completely a different class from the knockoffs. Wait, something's wrong. In the original work, Elnor was never involved in events like this. As if to confirm the situation, the system announced, main objective complete, defeat the monster with no casualties, achievement unlocked. Time until the knights arrive, 30 seconds. Ignoring the notification, Dud studied Elnor with concern. All the professors who justified experimenting on live monsters were supporters of the Tristan family. If Elnor got involved, it would essentially be admitting her family's wrongdoing. Elnor wouldn't care about political maneuvers. So why is she helping us? I don't understand. We must finish this mission quickly. Politics can wait. Elnor gently sheathed her sword and murmured, "It's over." But things always hold surprises. At that moment Dud's eyes went wide and he shouted, "Princess, behind you." Following Dud's gaze, Elnor saw the giant bear's body surge up from the flames, swinging its bony arm straight toward her. Like a natural reflex, Dud immediately lunged in, activating his holy shield to block the blow for the Villainess. However, faced with a full-force strike, Dud spat blood and fainted on the spot. Time quickly passed. Dud woke up to find himself in the infirmary. A voice beside him said, "You're awake?" Hearing that, Dud hurriedly asked, "What happened to the monster?" And Elnor? Explaining, the blue-haired girl calmly read and said, "The monster was defeated, and Elnor is fine. Of course the other students are all right too." This answer surprised him considerably. After speaking, she closed the book in her hands. She was Prime Minister Atalanta. And of course our protagonist quickly recognized her identity, Atalanta, the immortal who had lived over 1,000 years. Why would someone like her come to see me? Because I used the angel's blessing? Dud wondered inwardly. Unaware of these idle thoughts, Atalanta spoke up, "I haven't had a chance to talk with you since the freshman confrontation. I'm here to deliver some bad news and even worse news." She gave a small smile, prompting Dud to ask anxiously, "What is it?" Atalanta's tone shifted and grew serious. "You've attracted more attention than any freshman before. No one has ever been involved in so much trouble at your stage. In my experience, you'll run into even more trouble in the future. As for other bad news, what do you know about demons?" At Atalanta's question, Dud's face remained calm, as if not overly surprised to hear the name mentioned. Her amusement evident, Atalanta smiled, "Interesting reaction, Dud Campbell. Even with the Prime Minister bringing this up, you show no sign of worry." In reply, Dud answered with a bored expression. "I don't think I should reveal too much of what I truly know. If I do, I don't know what schemes you'll set in motion." "What do you mean by schemes?" Atalanta asked back. Dud then began lamenting his own problem. He's the only one not yet assigned to a class, unable even to attend lessons. Ahead, Atalanta understood why Dud was upset. So that's it, he's frustrated by his situation. "Because of recent events, I've had to deal with the fallout." Saying this, she snapped her fingers. Immediately, a pitch-black space enveloped them, ensuring no one could overhear their next conversation. Atalanta's voice then grew very serious. You may not realize it, but the ruling powers currently lack strong control over our society. This is a bad time for them. They'll do anything to recruit talented individuals, even if it means dragging them up from hell. Hearing this, with his gaming experience, Dud immediately grasped what she was referring to and continued, the tribal alliance coup, the power shifts within the Holy Empire, and the succession to the throne. Aren't all the recent incidents caused by these? Atalanta couldn't hide her surprise at how clearly Dud spoke, yet she nodded in agreement. You're right. The Golden Triangle may seem like friendly neighbors on the surface, but beneath that veneer there's fierce competition to capture talent. Most students wouldn't care about this. Adding on, Dud said, indeed, and that's why the entire continent is affected. All the incidents you're involved in have surely attracted their attention. Although things have happened, they've taken no action. That makes no sense unless someone is deliberately controlling the information flow. To Atalanta, hearing this from our protagonist, she was even more surprised to realize Dud was astute about politics as well. Unaware of Atalanta's thoughts, Dud continued the topic. So if I draw their attention now, it'll be very dangerous, right? A cold voice answered, Atalanta. Yes, the world will be destroyed. As she spoke, the ground beneath them shifted, revealing a scene of countless houses below swallowed by seas of fire. Then Atalanta produced a sheet of paper with a strange symbol printed on it and asked, do you know this seal? This is exactly why I asked you about demons. On the other side, of course Dud was familiar with the mark. It was the seal of the Purifiers. The Purifiers were a cult that worshipped demon gods and operated in the shadows, a group with a single goal, to summon demonic deities to destroy this world. Both Elnor's failed assassination and the monster escape were suspected to be their work. Both were plots aimed at the Tristan family. There's no guarantee it won't happen a third time. Atalanta said calmly, while Dud wondered aloud why she was telling him this. To Dud's remark, the female professor offered little explanation. Instead she took out a black card with white markings and handed it to the protagonist. I can't tell you why, but I want you to take this. Seeing that, Dud reached out and took the card. He recognized it, the interdynastic key, a relic that broke rules and could open a door to another world. From Atalanta's perspective, seeing Dud neither astonished nor inquisitive, she said, judging by your face, I'm sure you know what it is, right? Keep it safe and show me how far you can go. If I'm pleased with your progress, I'll give you more gifts. This conversation must remain secret. With that, Atalanta snapped and lifted the darkened space. Dud hastily promised he would not breathe a word about their talk. Afterwards, as she poured herself a cup of tea, Atalanta seemed to recall something and asked, by the way, how are you getting along with the warrior candidate and the Tristan heiress lately? Her question carried an implication that made Dud frown. He didn't understand why she asked, but he replied, we're fine. Atalanta smiled back, I hope you stay that way. Why? Is there a reason I should? Dud asked, curious. Atalanta's smile widened until her eyes nearly closed. Yes. If you don't, the world will be destroyed. Again? Why is the world so easily destroyed? Dud shouted. Atalanta burst out laughing at his reaction. Haha, I'm not lying. After all, the final objective of this plan can only be achieved through the three of you, she mused inwardly. Time passed quickly. Dud looked at the black card in his hand and sighed with heavy respect. Phew. Apocalypse, I'll think about this later. I can't believe she gave me this. This item shouldn't be obtainable by a player, something's definitely wrong with the main script. A sense of unease began to creep into the protagonist's mind, but before he could dwell on it, Professor Conrad's voice called from behind, oh, there you are, I've been looking for you, Dud Campbell. Hearing this, Dud turned and replied, you were looking for me? Is something the matter, sir? As he spoke, he hastily hid the black card behind his back. Meanwhile, Conrad seemed aware that Dud was worried about not being assigned to a class, so he came to resolve the issue. Even if you haven't been placed yet, I can't let you skip school forever. This is your temporary assignment. Starting tomorrow, you'll study with these people. As he spoke, he tossed a sheet of paper to Dud. After glancing at it, Dud's eyes widened. He realized he would be placed in the same class as the two people he least wanted to be entangled with. First, Class President Elnor Aranariz Latristan and Vice President Elijah Chrysanax. Seeing those two names, sweat broke out on Dud's face immediately. The apocalypse is coming, he shouted. Back to Dud. He could only sigh inwardly, they'd been like this for a while, and thanks to them all the attention was on him simply because he stood between the warrior candidate and the Tristan family. Whatever, focus on my own business. He said this while checking the system screen. Elnor's trust in Dud had shifted from trust level 5 to favor level 1. A reward was ready to claim. Nice! Dud shouted and hurried to check the reward. The system displayed, Tristan Sword Technique, Basic, 58% Effectiveness, Sword Technique of the prestigious Swordmaster family. The user can apply this effect effectively with any weapon. Basic Deep Breathing Technique, a breathing method that pushes the body's endurance and stamina to the limit. This skill enhances the effectiveness of Tristan's swordsmanship. Reading that, Dud stroked his chin in thought. Both skills complement each other through physical enhancements. This might be one of the best skill combos. The only person who could combine both skills effectively was Elnor. The reason she became a boss was her extraordinary use of the 1-4 division technique. Thinking that, he glanced at the info screen for Elijah. Elijah Chrisanax's curiosity level 5 rose to interest level 1. A reward was ready to claim. You have received Elnor's Demon Law skill. Use your influence to act against the virtuous individuals connected to you. The following individuals will be forced to accept a request from you. Keep your allies close and keep your enemies even closer. The higher your influence level with virtuous individuals, the greater the valuable rewards. If you can minimize the virtuous aspects, you may receive larger rewards. Back to Dud, the cryptic description left him puzzled. What does this mean? Can I earn rewards by turning good people bad? He wondered. Time passed quickly, and the scene shifted to some forest. At this time Dud's class had gathered here. Seeing everyone present, Professor Conrad raised his voice. Welcome, you bunch of chicks. In Survival 101 we'll train essential survival skills. If you don't want to die in a dungeon or ruin, you'd better prick up those ears and listen. Today's task is simple, go into the forest and bring back what you think will interest me. You have 10 minutes. In response, someone in the student group raised a hand and asked, Sir, are there no grading criteria? Answering the question, Professor Conrad smiled and shook his head. No, it's arbitrary. The student council president and I will grade. Good luck. Up front, of course the students couldn't accept such subjective grading. Voices of protest rose immediately. That's unfair, sir. Hearing this, Conrad had no intention of changing his decision. He even barked at them, life is mainly experience, you chicks, start in 5 minutes. So there was no alternative. The students split into groups and discussed what to collect for the arbitrary teacher. While they debated, Dud withdrew to a corner and pondered the skill he'd received as a reward. Keep allies close and enemies closer, what does that mean? How could I turn good people into bad? Dud wondered, but before he could think of an answer, the swordswoman Elijah approached and asked, Dud, do you want to team up with me? The offer surprised the protagonist, who asked back, shouldn't you be teaming up with your friend? Come on, we're friends too. Why don't we work together? Elijah said with a smile. Dud inwardly grumbled, join the protagonist's team. No, if that happens I'll just be in the way. Turning to Elijah, and seeing Dud not answer, she fiddled her fingertips together and gently asked, what's wrong? Not feeling well today? The reply was a cold expression from the protagonist. No, it's just that we're not that close. His words froze the smile on Elijah's face and it vanished. Then, whether out of irritation or not, the heroine turned and walked away. Too bad. Fine. Not far off, the nun watched this with some concern for her friend. Meanwhile, Dud glanced at Elijah and thought, that sounded harsh, she looks upset. As he thought this, a long-haired guy came to bother Dud. Dud Campbell, what's your relationship with the warrior candidate? Hearing the call, Dud looked up and quickly recalled the information about the person standing before him. Talion Armand. He was the second best in the class after Elijah. Later he also became a mid-tier boss in Chapter 1. Any problem with him? Dud wondered, then answered aloud, just acquainted. Talion's face grew angrier and he said coldly, there's been a lot of unpleasant talk about the outcome of that fight. Why do you keep dragging her into it? At the same time, a notification appeared, reminding the protagonist that Elnor's demon law had ensnared a virtuous person drawn in by your reputation. Reading the notice, Dud began to understand how it worked. A gleam appeared in his eyes as he realized a state had been updated. Seems I met the condition by making him angry, huh? Since he'll be a sub-boss later, I might be able to use him. He also triggered Elnor's demon law. Unaware of Dud's schemes, Talion ground his teeth and demanded, tell me the truth, was that fight fixed? You can't hide it from me. Dud stood, leaned in, and whispered into his ear with a loaded tone. Yes, it was fixed. Either you wanted it that way, watch your target get defeated by a mere flick. Have you realized the gap between us yet? Dud said with a mocking smile, while Talion's eyes widened in fury. Then, as if to teach Dud a lesson, the blonde-haired Talion proposed, "Then why don't we make a bet? Let's wager on who will score higher on this exercise. What do you say?" Unable to refuse, Dud accepted the challenge immediately. Fine, perfect. Back with Professor Conrad and the Student Council President Elnor. The professor seemed to notice something and said, "Hey, Student Council President, didn't I ask you to help grade? Don't you think this is a bit arbitrary?" Hearing this, the swordswoman Elnor shrugged. "I've been serious from the start." Her casual reply made the professor look at her in puzzlement. "Really? Then explain why Dud Campbell has a dark score before submitting his work." "Because he deserves it," Elnor said, glancing to the side as if avoiding Conrad's gaze. Of course Conrad couldn't accept that reason. He shouted, "What did you just say?" Ahead, Elnor glanced at Conrad with an annoyed expression and replied, "It seems you're unhappy with how I grade, aren't you?" Conrad said, "Why don't you try putting yourself in my position and think about it?" Elnor shot back immediately, "Then why don't you observe him a bit to verify for yourself why he deserves a dark Dud score?" "I'll go check now." Having said that, the student council president turned as if to leave. But how could Professor Conrad let her go so easily? Immediately he reached out, grabbed her shoulder, and pulled her back. "Hey, wait a moment. I know you're trying to get close to him." Elnor stood there. She replied with a bored expression, "Of course not. I just don't want her alone with the warrior candidate. Something could happen between them. Let me go check." Conrad answered firmly, "Yeah, even if I won't allow you to join, I can certainly kick you out. How about that?" Hearing that, even the villainous Elnor fell silent. Cut to the nun's position, Elijah's close friend. She watched Elijah ahead with worried eyes. Today she seemed unusually different. From the nun's perspective, Elijah was fighting the monsters with fierce enthusiasm. It seemed she was using them to vent all her frustration. Not far away, the big red-haired guy exhaled and remarked, "All the strongest monsters are gathered here. Has something unusual happened recently?" In response, the blonde archer nodded and explained, "You're right, this is a rare mineral area. If we can get some gems, we might avoid low grades." Hearing that, the brown-haired friend with glasses directed, "All right, stop hunting for now. Luca, help me move those mineral deposits." Up ahead, Elijah's inner discomfort seemed to grow, causing her to unleash all her anger on the monsters. With each punch a wolf was sent flying high. More strikingly, a dark purple-black light appeared to be gathering at Elijah's chest. The only one who could sense it was the nun behind her. It made her feel uneasy. The color of darkness, thick emotions, I can see it all. Though not shown outwardly, she was certainly very angry. Thinking this, the nun couldn't let it continue and spoke up, "Hey Elijah, how have you been lately?" Elijah relaxed her frown and replied, "These days nothing special." Hearing this, the nun couldn't hide her worry and added, "Even so, if something is bothering you I can help." Elijah refused the concern. "What are you talking about? Nothing's wrong." Behind them, the nun found the situation hard to handle. "Even if he says that, I'm worried his emotions could overwhelm his reason." She thought to herself and continued, "I know something is troubling you." Opposite her, Elijah sat down at the tree root and sighed, admitting, Is it that obvious? I can never lie to you, Trisha." Then the nun Trisha quickly grasped the story about Dud Campbell. "He keeps his distance from you. Does he just want to be friends with Dud?" Beside Elijah, she replied with some annoyance. "Even though we've been through a lot together lately, I don't think there's any need to create such a boundary between us." Given the situation, Trisha asked with some doubt, "Could it be that Dud doesn't mean it sincerely?" Hearing that, Elijah glanced over and said, "Not sincere, what do you mean by that?" To answer, Trisha voiced her thought. "He's just a boy from a minor noble family, and you're a warrior candidate. Being seen with him will certainly make people gossip." Hearing this, Elijah's small face changed slightly and she asked in alarm, "Is that how he's trying to help me?" Although Trisha didn't know if it was true, she agreed for now to reassure Elijah. Yes, he might be worried he could cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Although he's keeping his distance now, once his reputation is established he'll still regard you as an important friend. Does he really think that? Elijah stroked her chin, wondering, thinking about Dud again. At that moment he was hauling his butt away, fleeing Talion's attack. Meanwhile, numerous necessary notifications appeared beside him. Talion's wrath was nearing its limit. "You have brought him utter humiliation. Your negative influence has become permanent. You activated the demon rule and received a command reward. From behind, he gripped his spear tightly and charged forward as fast as he could. His voice and face were full of rage. You bastard, I'll kill you. I'll skewer you into shish kebab. Saying that, he gritted his teeth and thrust the spear forward like a machine gun, making Dud's scalp tingle. Dud gritted his teeth and poured all his vitality into accelerating. Seeing Dud only run and not fight back made Talion even angrier. Don't run, fight like a real man. Why do you always steal the finishing blow after I've dealt most of the damage? Up ahead, Dud heard this, suddenly turned, and reached out to stop him. Wait, stop. His words made Talion involuntarily freeze and wait for the protagonist's next words. But once again Talion was disappointed when what came from Dud was only a teasing remark. If so, want to split the spoils? Looking at Dud's infuriating face, the blonde seemed to feel he'd hit his limit. He slowly pulled the spear back and got into a throwing stance. Mana gathered at the spearhead, causing bolts of lightning to crackle outward. Then, without hesitation, Talion put force into his arm and threw hard. The spearhead sliced through the air and shot forward. However, it hadn't flown far before it collided with some sword. The spearhead split in two by the blade. The surprise left Talion stunned, while the protagonist forgot all about fleeing. Turning to see who had intervened, it was none other than Elijah. Don't touch my friend, she said coldly. Seeing Elijah appear made Talion go dumbstruck, and he greeted, Elijah, long time no see. This must be our first meeting since the monsters ran off. In response to that well-meaning remark, Elijah lunged forward, pressing the sword at Talion's throat and warning, wrong, this is the first time after you lost to me. Beside her, Dud watched this sweating, silently wondering where on earth she had come from. Back to his perspective, staring at the blade at his throat, he forced out, haha, it's so good to see you again. Elijah didn't intend to waste time on meaningless greetings and snapped, what were you trying to do to Dud just now? Don't tell me you were harassing him. No, Elijah, I was just, he stammered to explain. But the swordswoman didn't even let him finish and executed a leg sweep, sending Talion tumbling to the ground. Then she put her foot on him, pointed the sword at his face, and warned, I don't want to hear your excuses from beneath me. Talion, you're so scared you could piss yourself. I know, I get it. But why do you keep defending him? Someone as capable as you, if he wants to give advice and Elijah doesn't want to hear it, she cuts him off. You don't need to care who I befriend. I hate people who think they're better than others and then get angry at them. But he's deceiving all of us, Talion shouted. Then he shook his head to deny it. He's just doing this to teach us a lesson. He's not the cruel, unreasonable type. Dud isn't like that. Do you want to be taken down in one blow like last time? Elijah said, staring at Talion with a sharp gaze. Those words seemed to snap him awake. Could I have died? Thinking that, the fine hairs on Talion's body stood on end. All his fighting spirit evaporated, and he hurriedly turned to kneel before Dud. Sorry, Dud, I won't come near you without permission again. On this side, seeing Talion accept defeat, Elijah sheathed her sword and calmly said, try to get along with each other. Having said that, she left coldly, just as she had appeared. This made Dud a bit pensive. Truly a warrior candidate, she's good at teaching people lessons. I wonder if we'll still be considered friends. Right now I guess we're still friends, at least for now. Wait, that's not important. I still have to get my assignment graded. Time quickly passed until late afternoon. Our protagonist was now carrying a sack on his back to return and report the results to Professor Conrad. However, at that moment Trisha blocked his way. Wait, Dud, we've met before, right? I'm Trisha. Hearing that, Dud quickly recognized her and nodded. Oh, you're Elijah's friend, I remember now. After saying that, Dud sighed inwardly. In both the original story and now, she always prolongs the conversation. Unaware of Dud's thoughts, Chisa got straight to the point. Yes, I have something to ask. This might be a bit troublesome but, Elijah. At that, Trisha's voice stopped when she noticed the protagonist walking off ahead. Dud waved and said, let me get my grade first. Oh, alright, she replied, watching the protagonist's retreating back, unable to hide the worry on his face. He had Elijah fight Talion. Usually she'd try to talk things out instead of drawing her sword immediately, that's the real problem, Dud. Back to the protagonist's perspective. Just after he returned to the gathering point, he was overwhelmed by the sight before him. The ground had cracked into many pieces, while Council President Elnor lay with her arms crossed like a dead fish. This made Dud exclaim, what the hell happened here? Explaining the situation, Professor Conrad said irritably, that damned president insisted on going into the forest, so I told her she had to get past me first. As a result, I won. Seeing Elnor still motionless, he teased her. But you're better than before. Hey, are you pretending to be dead? Conrad smiled, while Dud was shouting inside. This school is crazy, just punish her. Thinking that, he then put on a bright smiling face. Ah, right, I'm here to get my grade. The reminder made the professor startle and turn. Oh right, we're still in class, aren't we? Let me see. Ooh, how did you bring back so much? Hearing that, the protagonist shamelessly took credit and waved his hand. No big deal, it just took some time because I wanted to make sure I picked the best ingredients. By Conrad's eyes, when he opened the bag it contained countless multicolored minerals, and he couldn't help nodding at these materials. Perfect, you're first place. I'm sure Perse will love these if you give them to her. You already have a wish agreement, why not use this chance to score points with her? Alright, I'll do that, Dud replied as he tied the bag closed. At the same time, Trisha, seeing Dud had finished reporting his results, shuffled over and asked, Hey, are you done? Up front, Professor Conrad stood and told the two of them, Okay, you can go. Class is over, but Chi, please take care of her. Yes, sir, Chi hurriedly replied, then turned to Dud. Dud, please take care of Elijah. But don't be too nice to her. Whenever she mentions you she seems to lose all reason. I'm worried things could get worse later. At this sister's remark, our Dud could only offer a crooked smile. I'm grateful for the warning, but I'm also a little scared. Thinking that, he waved in agreement. Alright, don't worry, Trisha, I'll do my best. You should do that if you want to survive this. She might not realize it. But I do, just one misstep and Elijah could cross the line. Trisha told herself this and began using her magic to heal Elnor. Time quickly passed, cutting to the School of Magic, where Dud was present to meet Professor Perse and state his request. The professor, sipping her tea, raised an eyebrow and asked, You want to use your wish? This early? Yes, I need something from the goddess of magic, Dud said with a smile. Perse asked, You can't wait any longer? Dud said Perse wouldn't be doing all the work alone to fulfill this request. Perse replied that no one would have to do anything if Dud didn't use his wish. Putting aside the idle talk, Dud hadn't come to casually request Percy, he wanted to prepare something for what was coming. To survive the upcoming battle with the Purifier he had to prepare everything possible. Not knowing Dud's true purpose, Perse sighed and asked, I've been ordered by Prime Minister Atalanta to support you as much as possible, as long as it's not used for other purposes. What do you want? Hearing that, Dud unconsciously swallowed hard. He began to recall the rewards he had received in Professor Conrad's lesson earlier. You received a reward from Elijah, 500 points. You received an evil seed. You can exchange it for a special skill in the points shop. The list of skills available for purchase has been updated. Elijah Chrysonax sealed a negative once. You can use the evil rule once. Talion Man sealed a negative once, you can use the evil rule once. The special skills effect is far better than any item. That's fine for now, but there's still much to prepare. Dud Campbell is still too weak to withstand the Purifier's Dud form attacks. That's why I need it. Thinking that, Dud stroked his chin as he described what he wanted. I need a cannon that could blow this entire academy away. On the other side, Professor Perse heard the protagonist's request and her face went vacant. She stared at Dud with dead fish eyes and, after a few seconds, seemed to come to. She rose from her chair and demanded, Dud, are you crazy? Creating it is one thing, but where do you plan to use it? Hearing this, Dud knew Perse was about to explode with anger. So he immediately took out the pledge paper and cut her off. Wait, Professor, the agreement clearly states you must fulfill any ordinary request. Something this simple surely can't stump the head of the School of Magic. In response, Perse's brow tightened. She stared at the paper and complained irritably, You want me to craft a weapon? This is not an ordinary request. Dud kept persuading her, but a promise is a promise, right? I don't intend to use it to harm anyone. I just have something I need to destroy in a single strike, otherwise it'll be a huge hassle. That's why I'm even more worried. You idiot! Perse shouted. But then, as if remembering Atalanta's instructions, the professor sighed. Fine, I suppose you must have your reasons. And since you've helped deal with the monsters recently, I'll make the cannon for you. Dud Campbell. Yes, thank you, Professor Perse, Dud replied. On the other hand, for some reason the female professor also blurted out, in disbelief, not only do you have 4 people in your harem, you even make people believe you'll save the world. A harem? Dud asked curiously. Purse suddenly realized she'd misspoken. She immediately grew flustered and turned to scold Dud. Oh my, what's wrong with my head? Talking to you has completely distracted me, it's all your fault, Dud. This was because Professor Purse was 30 and still single, a worrying number for any woman. Seeing the professor panic, Dud hurried to reassure her, please calm down, I have another request in my wish. The professor also promised Elijah and me that she'd give each of us an item from the Phantasmal Archive. Can I receive it now? Time passed quickly. Dud walked down the corridor, thinking about what he needed to do next. Good. So I've been permitted to make the cannon. Now I just need to gather the materials to make it. I can collect all those materials with the interdynastic key. It seems everything is going according to plan. At that moment, an orange-haired man dressed like a noble, carrying a cane, stood before Dud and called out, Hey kid, you're Dud Campbell, right? Hearing someone call him, the protagonist looked up and answered, yes, that's right. Across from him, the stranger smiled when Dud confirmed and continued, I didn't expect to meet you here, what a coincidence. My name is Galdia Riverback. I'm from the Purifier's charity fund. Facing Galdier made sweat bead on Dud's face because he quickly recognized who this man was. What a farce. That fund is just a front for money laundering. Galdia Riverback is the chapter's final boss, also known as the Purifier. He is the leader of the Scorching Flame. Unaware that Dud fully grasped his identity and background, Galdier still smiled and handed him a business card. I've heard some rumors about you. You stopped a monster from escaping all by yourself, didn't you? That's not something an ordinary person could do without courage or extraordinary skill. Truly impressive. Whenever I meet an extraordinary student like you, I wonder what their future will be. I'd very much like to have dinner with you. Are you free? I also very much want to talk with you. In response, Dud naturally didn't want to chat with a chapter boss, so he brushed it off. I think now is enough time to talk. After saying that, he silently pondered the plot in his head. In the original story, this guy should approach and bother Elijah. So why is he coming to me? Don't tell me this system considers me the protagonist. No, no way. The more he thought, the more confused Dud became. He scratched his head and said, I'll think about it. Across from him, Galdier took Dud's confirmation as agreement and turned to leave. Meet me at Sunset Eye in 3 days. I'll be waiting. Seeing him decide unilaterally like that, Dud silently cursed his ancestors 18 generations back. Hey, I said I'd think about it. Damn it. He then glanced at the shiny business card. Its gilded sheen nearly blinded him. Good grief, my eyes hurt. Fine, I'll go. The protagonist complained inwardly. In truth, I have no way to avoid this event. As before, things are either on or off. What I can do, what I know, what I don't know, and all the risk factors. If I consider everything in this situation, defeating the Purifier isn't impossible, but I still don't understand why I have to take Elijah's role. Maybe I messed everything up from the start, but for now I'll handle the present and worry about the rest later. With that in mind, and to ensure his safety for the meeting with that Galdier, Dud went to find his medical insurance. In front of a certain room, Dud gritted his teeth, and raised his trembling hand to knock on the door, calling inside, Elnor, are you there? Hearing the familiar voice, Guildmaster Elnor sounded a little surprised and asked back, Dud, what are you doing here? Answering hesitantly, Dud said, you don't have to come out, I just have a small thing to say. Are you free 3 days from now? At the same time, Elnor's assistant was in the room, complaining about returning books on time to the Guildmaster. You haven't read any of them and they're just gathering dust. Did you rent them just to look at the covers? Aren't I the one who has to pay the late fees because of you? Not letting her speak further, Elnor raised a finger to cover her mouth. Unaware of this, Dud continued with his request. Guildmaster, that day I'd like you to spend a little time and go with me to a place. Just the 2 of us? Elnor asked again. Yes, just the 2 of us. Dud nodded. Where to? Elnor asked. There's a place called Sunset Eye. Do you know it? Dud named the location Galdier had arranged. The assistant in the room widened her eyes. Hey, that's a famous date spot. Before she could say more, Elnor pushed her aside and asked Dud directly. I know. So why do you want me to go with you? Explaining, Dud simply stammered that he'd tell Elnor when they met that day. Cut to some time in Elijah's past, She was sulking alone on a hill of flowers when a voice called from behind, "Hey Elijah, so you're here after all?" Elijah muttered in reply, "Shut up." The voice continued, "Come on, I said I'm sorry, I won't tease you anymore." Hearing that, Elijah spun around angry, tears welling, "Liar. You think pushing me down the hill was a joke?" That accusation made her brother scratch his head awkwardly. "Well then I'll attack you next time when you're still on the ground. Stop bullying your sister," Elijah shouted. Her brother rubbed his hands and laughed it off. "Haha, I'm just joking. I just want you to be stronger, right? I don't want my sister to be beaten by someone. Try some cookies I brought from the Viscount's house," he said, offering a paper bag. But Elijah, still annoyed, refused, "No thanks." Despite that, she snatched the bag and asked, "Did you steal these?" "Don't say stole, I only took the leftovers," her brother hurriedly corrected. He then sat down beside Elijah and shared, "Thanks to the Viscount, I'll be promoted to a squire immediately. I'll go to the battlefield, I'll have the chance to experience new things and explore this world. Who knows, maybe I'll even earn the title of a guard." Elijah ate a cookie and said with a skeptical look, "Yeah, keep dreaming. A guy who bullies his sister all day can't possibly become a guard." "Hey, who says people have to stay stuck in one place forever?" their brother said gently, and sensing some worry, Elijah asked, "If you go to fight, will you die?" "If unlucky, maybe, but he's pretty good, so it probably won't happen," their brother replied calmly. Still annoyed with him, Elijah sneered, "I hope you get unlucky and die. Go ahead, you're always teasing me, bothering me, never listening to our parents, always taking your sword to fight. I wish death were waiting for you." She thrust out her tongue. To that, their brother simply smiled softly and affirmed that if he became a guard, he'd always be there to protect her. Back in the present, Elijah was sleeping in her room when she was suddenly woken by someone calling. Though a bit tired, she got up, opened the door, and asked the person outside, "Huh? What's the matter?" The visitor was none other than Dud. He awkwardly scratched his head, "Sorry, I'm from the countryside, so I'm not used to things here yet. About what I said about not being friends with you, I'm sorry," he said as he offered the bag in his hand. "Ah, I brought some cookies from the kitchen, they're pretty good." This made Elijah fall a bit silent. Then she quickly grabbed the bag and shrugged, "Why apologize? That's not cool at all. We're friends. Anyway, go back to sleep." Before she could close the door, Dud revealed his real purpose. "Wait a moment, I need your help with something. Can you come with me for a bit? It's urgent," he said with an eager face. Elijah felt a bit uneasy. Is he crazy? She thought inwardly. Cut to the position of Guildmaster Elnor. She was busy with miscellaneous paperwork, while her assistant's voice kept nagging beside her. "So we've processed all the teaching materials. I'll also review the fees from the clubs. The rest concerns transfer students. I heard we'll be receiving some students from the Tribal Alliance. She belongs to a sect that collapsed after a coup, surely the daughter of one of the tribal leaders. Now they're basically exiles, and she'll have many retainers with her. In reality, her whole family is seeking asylum here. Her name is Riru Garuda. Have you heard of her? They say she's rather famous." "Probably yes," Elnor replied with a bored expression. From her face it was hard to tell whether she'd actually heard the name Riru before or was just humoring them. Noticing this, her friend added, "And next term, a true saintess from the Holy Empire will arrive. She's coming here in person?" Elnor frowned. It seems like something Elnor should pay attention to. In response, the assistant elaborated that people said a delegation would accompany her, but given how things were being handled, the rector had likely used some of his influence. Cut to Elnor's perspective, naturally, having two important newcomers join the academy left her a bit weary. Preparing to receive a saintess, and the daughter of a tribal leader at that, this academy is definitely up to something. It's always been like that, Guildmaster. The assistant's remark made Elnor startle and realize it. That's true. It seems every trouble gets funneled into this place. Oh right, I forgot. Seeing Elnor so worried, the assistant asked why she was bothered. Haven't you only been here a day or two? Elnor sighed and replied, "It's just that I'm in a bad mood." Cut to Dud and Elijah, the two of them were lying together, gazing at the moon. Who knew the school even had an observatory? The night sky is beautiful. Responding, Elijah seemed uneasy and asked Dud, "Do we really have to do this right now?" Dud answered calmly, "I have no other choice. This is the only way to make everything line up perfectly." "Alright, wait a moment," he said as he checked the controller in his hand. At the moment, both of them were lying in the cradle of something that looked like a catapult. And it truly was a catapult. With the catapult I got from the observation storage, I can reach that place. Although it's an area for high-level players, I have the secret card the rector gave me. Thinking so, he pressed the button on the controller. And immediately, the catapult flung both Dud and Elijah high into the sky. What the? Elijah screamed, feeling betrayed at being left uninformed. But she didn't stay scared for long. Dud loudly called out, Elijah, focus, open your eyes. Before them now hung a red spatial gate. Dud took out the black card Atalanta had given him and explained, this is the spatial link gate. We're about to step inside. Don't worry, Elijah, it might be a little dangerous. Hearing that, Elijah couldn't help but feel anxious. But an image of her brother suddenly flashed through her mind. His voice seemed to echo in her ear, hey, why are you crying? What are you scared of? Look at me, Elijah. That memory steadied the swordswoman's expression. Then the two of them flew into the spatial gate. The gate vanished from the night sky as if it had never appeared. Inside the gate was a space with a deep purple sky. Countless large rocks floated everywhere. Dud and Elijah stood on one such rock. Dud warned, hey, we don't have much time. This is interrealm space, don't touch anything, it can be very dangerous. Then Dud leapt off his rock, startling Elijah into shouting, Dud, what are you doing? Explaining his action as he swooped, Dud said, don't worry, gravity here is unstable. Anyway, we need to get a little higher. Below, Elijah, curious about why Dud risked this unstable place, asked, what are you looking for? In reply, our protagonist didn't explain much, he just gave a knowing smile and said, you'll see, just jump, the rock is being pushed back. Are you crazy? You'll die if you fall. Elijah shouted. Still, Dud encouraged her, we won't die, just jump. Hearing that, Elijah gritted her teeth, trusted the protagonist, and leaped as he said. As a result, she fell straight downward. This left Elijah stunned and panicked, because it seemed completely different from what Dud had said. Huh? Am I falling? While terrified, an image suddenly flashed through Elijah's mind. The surroundings were a sea of flames. Little Elijah trembled, clutching a sickle and wearing her blood-stained nightclothes. Ahead, her brother shouted, Elnor is in danger here, we must run out the back door and get to the granary at once. From behind, Elijah replied, trembling, are we going to leave mother and father behind? Her brother answered with a resolute face, we have to go now. I'll take care of mother and father. If you see any harbinger of the end, just run. But before he could say more, little Elijah grabbed his cloak tightly and sobbed. What about him? Mother and father are gone. I'm not stupid. Mother and father are gone, it's just the two of us left. If you die too, what will I do? That's why we have to escape together. Hearing his sister's words, the brother couldn't hold back and a single tear fell. But quickly he turned forward, hiding the weakness on his face, and gently instructed, idiot, if I go with you will be in more danger. Besides, before I'm your brother, I'm a guard. Don't overthink it, don't worry, just run as far as you can. Don't worry, if you reach safety, we'll meet again on the hill where I always train. Answer me, Elijah. His voice was almost a shout, which frightened Elijah a bit. She involuntarily released his cloak and, flustered, answered, yes, sir. Hearing that, her brother nodded in satisfaction. All right, stay calm. Everything will be fine. Now run, little sister, I'll be right behind you. Back in the present, while Elijah was still falling, Dud quickly reached out his hand, and grabbed Elijah's hand firmly to stop her from falling. Seeing this, Elijah widened her eyes and demanded, hey, where's the gravity you promised? You should have explained better. I nearly died. Above, Dud remained calm as if nothing had happened. Relax, Elijah, you'll get used to it. Look up, we found our target. Then Dud hauled Elijah up onto the rock. Not far from them, a wisp of seven-colored smoke drifted in the air. Seeing it, Dud excitedly took out his pouch. Okay, grab this. With that, the seven-colored smoke was sucked into the brown pouch, and Dud quickly tied the bag shut. Watching Dud's action, Elijah was completely baffled and asked, what is this? What am I supposed to do with it? Dud explained that they would need it later when they had to run. The explanation left Elijah stunned. She asked again to be sure, huh? Run away? At that, Dud broke into an amused smile and asked, do you see it? Elijah scanned the surroundings for a moment and, puzzled, said, huh? It's just the sky. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the space before them suddenly went pitch black. Then two gigantic rows of razor-sharp teeth abruptly appeared before them, freezing Elijah in terror. Even Dud broke into a cold sweat at the sight. He forced out, "This is a creature of interrealm space. It looks like it's time for us to leave." From a distance, the creature attacking Dud and Elijah resembled a giant whale, but its eyes were blood-red and its jaws packed with extremely sharp teeth. Dud could feel that if they delayed even a moment more, he and Elijah would become that monster's dinner. He hurriedly said, "We need to make sure everything it spews is collected." "Huh? Like this?" Elijah asked as she opened the mouth of the pouch, trying to inhale the strange smoke pouring from the giant fish. However, the weight of the things being sucked in made her grimace. "This is disgusting," she shouted. Instantly, Dud grabbed her hand and lunged forward. Behind them the giant fish gaped its massive maw as if it wanted to swallow them both in one bite. But just as the razor teeth were about to close, Dud and Elijah shot through a spatial gate, escaped the purple sky, and landed safely on solid ground. The brush with death made Dud sweat. Just as I calculated, it timed perfectly with the card's duration, he thought, then asked, "Hey Elijah, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" Elijah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she angrily pulled her hand out of Dud's grip, with eyes blazing. "Don't tell me you planned all this in advance, even the escape." "Of course, everything went according to plan." Dud smiled brightly, proud. "The Gregory Phantom trick is an easy move for a veteran player like me." But from Elijah's perspective, her anger surged like never before. "Why didn't you tell me we were going into interrealm space?" Dud hesitated slightly, then replied nonchalantly, "Because I thought you wouldn't follow me here." "You were right." Elijah ground her teeth and threw the pouch to the ground. "I'm complaining, it's tied up now. I can't believe you woke me up just to do this." Saying that, she turned and strode back to her room without looking back. Dud watched her retreating figure, feeling a bit guilty. Finally he called out, "Thanks, and sorry for not telling you beforehand." But no sooner had he finished speaking than the system notified him that Elijah's favorability had rapidly increased. It was now at concern level 4. Dud stared blankly. "Wait, I thought this would lower her opinion of me, but it actually shot up. What the hell is going on?" While Dud spiraled in confused thought, Elijah sank into recollection. The moment Dud gripped her hand and confidently pulled her from the monster's jaws, her heart involuntarily beat a little faster. Time passed quickly. Cut to Atalanta, the headmistress. She seemed to have just finished exercising, sweat soaking her body. As she tied her hair she asked someone ahead, "Hey, is this the item I was thinking of?" Hearing that, the person opposite replied, "I don't know what you're thinking, but this is the spiritual entity." Atalanta immediately realized something and asked, "So you've been using that in interspace, right?" Hearing this, Dud took the card, held it up, and admitted, "Yes, but didn't you give this to me to do exactly that?" Headmistress Atalanta replied with a slightly reproachful tone, "I didn't expect you'd be so quick." "And what's with your hair?" Before her stood Dud looking utterly disheveled, his hair all frizzed. The corners of his eyes still held a trace of tears from the harrowing experience. I just got struck on the head by Department Head Purse's lightning. I was on my way to deliver the spiritual entity obtained from interspace when, before I could finish, Atalanta understood everything." "I see. Purse must have been quite panicked. She's a powerful witch but rather timid." Putting that aside, Dud casually asked, "Is this item enough to meet your request?" "Headmistress Atalanta, you said if I could satisfy you you'd give an extra reward, right?" Hearing that, the headmistress shrugged and replied, "If it's just that item, other magic towers could buy it for me with mountains of gold. So you don't need to worry about that." Returning to the main point, Dud knew Atalanta wouldn't be fooled by such words, so he spoke bluntly, "It's not really about the gift. I actually have a favor to ask. Whatever it is, a spiritual entity is the consciousness left behind in this world by great predecessors. I want you to bind it into my item, can you do that?" After hearing Dud's request, Atalanta was slightly surprised and praised him. "Wow, doing that will let the consciousness gradually awaken and grow stronger over time. This is truly a strategic and clever choice. Dud, which item do you want me to bind it into?" Dud answered, that item is." But before he could finish, Atalanta cut in. "There's something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. How are you so strong? You defeated assassins with your bare hands and knocked out a hero candidate in one blow. Lately you've even stopped demonic beasts from attacking people. Now this too. Why are you so obsessed with power? she said, staring at Dud, waiting for his answer. But our protagonist only fell into thought. The duplicates appearing in the main plot here are on par with Demon Lords, and the script's ending is closely tied to Elnor and Elijah. I've inadvertently been drawn into their storyline, so of course I can't tell her that. That's really troublesome, Dud sighed inwardly. Instead of answering, he reversed the question. I have one to ask you. Why do you always treat me so well? Hearing this from the protagonist, the headmistress asked with amusement, what do you mean by that? Her tone was teasing, and Dud spoke plainly. Actually, you have many questions to ask me. Like how did I find the location of interspace? How do I know and understand the spiritual entities left by predecessors? How could I beat assassins, defeat the hero candidate Elijah, and stop demonic beasts? Ordinary students like me couldn't possibly do those things. I'm just a freshman, but recently I really feel like everything in this academy revolves around me. Maybe I'm being a bit paranoid, but in every class, every activity, I sense your presence. It's like you're trying to say, do whatever you want, I'll support you from behind, you don't need to worry. So why do you challenge me yet also create opportunities to help me? Explaining this, Atalanta's tone didn't change, remaining teasing. Honestly, I don't understand how you can talk to a headmistress like me and say things like that. It's unacceptable behavior. But anyway, you've realized it, right? Why do I favor you? Could it be because I find you cute? The unexpected answer left Dud momentarily stunned. He began to complain inwardly. I knew she would say that, so I shouldn't have asked, but at least she agreed to transfer the spiritual entity to me. Now I just need to nurture it to raise synchronization, the consciousness inside will awaken. If I persist in nurturing it from chapter 2 onward, it will be quite useful to me, but first I need to complete this mission. Time passed quickly into evening. The main mission was to lead a purification meeting, to resolve incidents occurring at the Sunset Eye. At this time Dud was near the Sunset Eye restaurant area. He scanned the surroundings as if searching for someone. Just then, Elnor's familiar voice sounded beside him. You're here. Hearing the familiar voice, Dud turned and replied, head of the association, have you been waiting long for me? Not long, only about 6 hours. Elnor said as she casually reapplied her lipstick. She was now dressed very elegantly, her hairstyle changed and the red dress hugged her small waist, accentuating her sultry figure. Even Dud was momentarily stunned by her beauty, his face flushed as he thought, wait, 6 hours? So she arrived here before nightfall? Across from him, seeing Dud's flustered expression, Elnor smoothed her hair and explained further. That's right, full moons are rare, so I wanted to prepare everything thoroughly. This is your first time going out off campus, right? Yes. The protagonist admitted. But he couldn't even look Elnor in the eye like usual from embarrassment. This amused and teased her. Why won't you look me in the eye? This is Dud's first outing with a girl off campus. You could really call this a date, so it's understandable he's shy. Elnor reached out, took Dud's hand, and tugged him along. Come on, we have lots of places to go and the line's long. Soon after, the two of them arrived at the Sunset Eye restaurant. However, a crowd was waiting ahead. Oh dear, don't push, who knew it would be this crowded, someone shouted. Seeing this, Dud had already half expected it. As he thought, there were way too many people, will we even get in? He wondered. At the same time, Talion, dressed as staff, checked his list and called out, Number 27, last call. If you're not here I'll cancel the reservation. Number 27 cancelled. Next is 28. Hearing that, Dud was surprised. Huh? That's Talion. Why is he here? Talion, seeing Dud approach, came over to greet him. Dud? You remember me? I'm working here part-time, my family won't give me spending money, so I'm a bit short. His gaze shifted to Elnor. Head of the association, you're here too. Then Talion's tone grew hesitant, as if he had a thought. Weird, Dud, why are you with her? What's your relationship? Is it a date? Before he could finish, Dud quickly denied it. He also reminded himself, sure, walking with a head like this invites suspicion. To everyone else, this looks like a date. From Elnor's perspective, unfamiliar with Talion, she asked, Hey staff, do I get priority as student council president? Of course. Talion replied cheerfully. Meanwhile Dud noticed something odd on Talion and asked, Wait, Talion, are you wearing a necklace? The blonde friend looked surprised but quickly took out a pendant and explained, I'm wearing one the Purification Guild gave me. You know, it's run by Viscount Riverback. Back in Dud's view, a notification popped up. The target control skill had been activated on Talyan. Seeing that, Dud quickly grasped the problem and urgently warned, "Right, but don't wear that anymore, and tell the other staff not to wear them either." Dud's tone was serious, and though Talyan didn't understand why, he nodded in agreement. "Okay, I get it." Returning to the protagonist, the fact that all the staff were affected by a control skill made him uneasy about this meeting. After raising enough favor with Elijah, the main scenario had shifted significantly. That means Viscount Riverback's attention would now turn to me. In short, I need to be more careful. If the script has changed, I must act accordingly. If he's targeting me, I need to prepare a counter and teach him a lesson. With that, Dud and Elnor hurried inside the restaurant. As they stepped in, a familiar voice spoke up. Viscount Riverback was already waiting for them. Politely he greeted, "Pleasure to meet Miss Tristan and you as well, Dud." Then the sly Viscount Riverback told Elnor, "Miss, let me borrow student Dud for a moment, we have some matters to attend to." Hearing that, Elnor froze briefly, but she immediately refused. "No way, who gave you permission?" Before she could finish, Dud hurriedly intervened from behind. He whispered into her ear, President, it's fine." Then he began to say something else to Elnor. It made her eyes narrow and she turned to look at Dud with a shocked expression. Unaware of this, Riverback gabbed on at the front. "Miss, you'll be escorted to a private room, won't take long. It seems Miss Tristan and student Dud are quite close, aren't they? After you're done talking, follow me." He smiled with his eyes nearly closed, but there was a slyness in that grin. With that, Dud and Elnor were led to separate private rooms. And no sooner had he sat down, before he could take a sip, than the old man opposite cut straight to the chase. "Do you know why I summoned you here?" Dud replied to him. It seemed the protagonist didn't want to waste time with these villains, so he laid his cards on the table. "Isn't it because you plan to cause chaos to resurrect a demon during the full moon? When security is lax, it's easy to slaughter many students, generating powerful malicious aura from blood and death, and release demonic beasts everywhere. Use assassins to take out the knights, create more chaos and fear to awaken the demons sleeping in the Tristan bloodline, right? From the start, the assassinations and demonic beast attacks were caused by you, but I already reported this whole plan to the headmaster and everything has been dealt with. So what do you intend to do?" Dud said, staring at Riverback. Riverback's eyes widened. He had no idea how Dud knew the details of his plan. He thought to himself, "What? Now I understand why the seer took an interest in this one. Harmless in appearance, but with a mind deeper than venomous snakes. He's no ordinary man." Thinking that, Riverback's face tightened. But thinking of what he had prepared in advance, he regained his confidence and said, "Impressive, but my men have Tristan under control already. You didn't expect that, did you?" No sooner had he finished than Elnor burst in, sword in hand, kicking the door open. Her kick shattered the door into splinters, sharp wooden shards flying everywhere. Riverback, seeing her bloodied appearance, shouted, "Impossible, Princess Tristan? How could this be?" To explain this, we must go back a few minutes to when Elnor was being escorted away by Riverback's men. Perhaps overconfident in their own strength, they made no effort to hide their arrogance as they ordered, "Princess Tristan, come with me, we have places to go." Their haughty faces reminded Tristan of the whispers Dud had told her before. "President, the demon worshippers are about to surge in. Regarding that frenzy, have you felt uneasy lately?" She thought a little release might be good for her. With that thought, she slowly stood and said coldly to the group, "By imperial law, demon worshippers can be dealt with immediately and reported afterward without issue." Behind them, a brown-haired hunter mockingly laid a hand on her pale shoulder and sneered, "But do you have the capability to carry that out? All right, hurry up, since we intend to capture her alive, behave." Before he finished, his face suddenly froze as a terrifying murderous aura began to radiate from Elnor. Her mental state seemed to change drastically. "You think I can't do it?" As she spoke, she seized his head with one hand and slammed it down so hard that the tea table shattered into pieces. Around them, the remaining hounds gritted their teeth and drew their weapons. "Damn it! Do not kill her, she is the most important target in the plan. Injure her as much as you want, but do not kill her." They shouted to one another and surged forward to attack her in overwhelming numbers. But these weaklings weren't even enough to warm Elnor up. With the terrifying power of the Tristan bloodline, she began kicking each of them flying. Her razor-sharp sword slid across their throats, leaving these hounds to howl in despair. The more she fought, the redder Tristan's eyes became, making the thug's hair stand on end. In the end they realized the person before them was not a lackey they could handle. In short, these were the events that unfolded when Riverback's men tried to abduct Elnor. Back in the present, Riverback stood dumbfounded, unable to speak. Meanwhile, the protagonist anxiously asked, "President, are you all right?" Elnor replied in a refreshed voice, wiping blood from her sword as she nodded. "Yeah, I actually feel better. But that was no stroll. Come out with me again next time." At that moment Dud received 2 system notifications. Elnor's affection had risen to amiable, the frenzy had eased thanks to you, a private quest appeared, Gideon Latristan has noticed you. Hearing the alerts, Dud was startled rather than pleased. He wondered, what is this? Why would Elnor's father take notice of me? But anyway, the task was completed, he thought. However, things never go as smoothly as one hopes. Just then, old Riverback realized he had failed. To salvage the situation, he produced something that looked like a chunk of flesh and snarled, "I didn't expect I'd have to use this." His words caught Dud's attention, and he quickly recognized the item Riverback held, demonic essence. How did that appear? Reacting fast, Dud shouted, "President, don't let him eat that." Unfortunately Dud's warning came a moment too late. Riverback had already tossed the chunk into his mouth and whispered, "Receive the grace of the god." Next, from outside the Sunset Eye restaurant, a jet of ink-black energy suddenly burst forth, blowing the restaurant to pieces. Back where Dud was, he was crawling out of the rubble of the building, battered and broken. At that moment Riverback's voice rang out again, but his tone had shifted. "Splendid. I didn't intend to use this until the seer dealt with you. Dud Campbell, can you handle this?" He roared. At that instant his body transformed into a monstrously fierce demonic form, and the chunk of flesh he had swallowed on his chest glowed without cease. With his combat experience in this game, how could Dud not recognize this state? A human who absorbs demonic essence can wield part of a demon's power. A demon since Chapter 1? This world really is insane, Dud grumbled inwardly. Meanwhile the system kept issuing warnings, defeat the purifier. Failure occurs if there are too many casualties. Above, Riverback howled like a mad dog as he felt the power endlessly surging through his body. From now on, this is the moment of purification. Back in Dud's view, the sound of rapid footsteps came from afar, catching his attention. When he saw who was approaching, his face twisted further. Damn it, the problem wasn't just that man but those monsters as well. Manators, the demon worshippers Elnor had dealt with, had revived. From Dud's perspective, Riverback's hounds had also transformed into half-human, half-demon forms. Their eyes glowed blood-red as they lunged toward the protagonist. But at that moment a shout rang out, the piercing thrust technique. With the cry, a beam of blue light shot straight at the demonic creatures, shredding their bodies to pieces. It seemed the one who struck was their friend Talyan. Surveying the devastation around him, Talyan wore a sheepish grin and asked, "What the hell is going on? What are those monsters? And where's Viscount Riverback? Oh, you saw my move? I'd love some feedback." In response, Dud explained things bluntly. "They were all your teammates turned into those. If you wear that necklace you'd become like them too." Hearing this, he began trembling uncontrollably. Then he looked at the protagonist and asked, "Could this be a situation engineered by the Viscount?" Dud nodded and answered, "Yes. If you don't want to witness true hell, follow my orders from now on." Dud's serious tone altered Talyan's expression. He quickly nodded and asked, "Understood. But what about Dud? What will you do?" Dud replied, "I have to handle something else. I must protect the civilians and stop the Viscount. Now run, Talyan." Talyan realized staying wouldn't help Dud or Elnor, so the young man immediately ran off. After he left, President Elnor looked at Dud and asked, "Do you know where the Viscount went?" Dud stroked his chin, thought for a few seconds, and replied, "Yes, I have a guess. The goal of demon worshippers is always the same. They sow despair and chaos everywhere, and bring pandemonium, the demon realm, into this world. There's only one place he'll target." Time passed quickly and the scene cut to Viscount Riverback. He had flown to a yellow energy barrier. In the distance lay the sealed land where the battle between angels and demons once took place. Staring at the massive barrier before him, Riverback wasn't confident he could destroy it completely. "Even if I can't break the entire protective ward, at least I can deal some damage." Saying that, he began gathering mana in his palm, forming a black orb of energy that radiated a menacing aura. But before he could unleash it, a cold voice from behind rang out. "Okay, don't just stand there." The familiar voice startled him. Riverback couldn't hide his surprise. He turned back to Dud and said, "Dud, how did you know I'd come here?" Dud answered with a mocking smile. Too obvious, your actions are predictable. You obtain demonic power, so of course you'd head to where the demons are sealed. At that moment Dud was being carried piggyback by Elnor to get here faster. It was a bit humiliating, but Dud didn't care much. High above, Riverback wasn't panicked by their arrival, he was even slightly pleased. Thanks to you being here I don't have to search. After I kill you I'll capture Princess Tristan. Back in Dud's view, he looked at the guild president and warned, no matter what happens, we have to survive, understood? Elnor replied with a nod. Yeah. And inwardly she thought that the level of trust he placed in her was genuinely hard to get used to. But I must be worthy of that trust. It's the pride of the Tristan family. She thought as she tightened her grip on the two swords in her hands. Then she drove power into her legs and stomped hard, launching her small frame into the air like a cannonball. Riverback the demon was stunned, but quickly raised both hands to his chest to block. Below, Dud seized the opportunity to act. As he ran he shouted, "President, over here." Seeing this, Riverback up above, although unclear what Dud planned, couldn't allow him to act freely. He shouted, "Don't you dare touch him." Having said that, he unleashed bolts of black lightning slamming down below. Too bad for him, Dud's incredible dodging ability evaded them all. This made Riverback's eyes widen. How is this possible? He blurted, still stunned and baffled at how Dud avoided every attack. At that moment, President Elnor's blade edge was already closing in on him. Seeing that, Riverback hurriedly swept his arm to counter. The two devastating blows collided, creating a shockwave that hurled them both apart. Meanwhile, black lightning continued to rain from above, and Dud could only get his ass up and run as fast as he could. Riverback grew increasingly uneasy and hastily chased after Dud from behind. "Come back and fight. Don't just keep running," Riverback barked. Right behind Riverback, President Elnor kept close, not letting up. This began to irritate the Viscount. What a nuisance. Princess. After saying this, Riverback's whole body contracted slightly and released an extremely powerful burst of energy. The blast sent both Dud and Elnor flying like trash. However, the attack was far from over. Before Dud could regain his footing, Riverback used a skill called Shadow Fang Claw, and fired a black arrow imbued with destructive power, aiming straight at the protagonist. He shouted, "I will finish you off." As a result, our protagonist was struck by a bolt of lightning that made him vomit bile from the pain. Finally, his body was blasted backward like discarded refuse. Above, Viscount Riverback saw Dud's eyes roll back and laughed triumphantly. "There are more of you here than I thought. It seems your tricks are up." Hearing this, Elnor stepped in front of Dud to protect him. "Get up and go, I'll buy you time, go now." Looking at her determined face, even Riverback was somewhat moved and spoke, "You two are stubborn, Miss Tristan. To be honest, you two are a perfect match." Switching to Elnor's perspective, just before the dangerous moment, she felt a strange thought stir within her. All this time I've only taken and never given. Isn't it time I repay, at least once? She vowed silently and urged the protagonist, "Get up. I'll trust you to the end." Saying that, she slowly advanced. Sparks of rose-red lightning crackled from her hand gripping the sword. Meanwhile Riverback sneered coldly, "How touching. So your little strategy meeting is over, is it?" In reply, Elnor asked, "Viscount Riverback, may I ask you one thing? Do you think tonight that he and I make a good couple?" The unexpected question left the monster's face blank for a few seconds. Then he answered, frighteningly perfect. "If you make it out alive, why not consider marrying each other?" His voice dripped with mockery. After receiving his answer, Elnor stamped her foot hard and lunged straight toward him. Her eyes had turned pitch black like a demon's. Immediately, Elnor drew her leg back and unleashed a kick that knocked Riverback off balance. Before he could regain his footing, Elnor launched a flurry of slashes at lightning speed, leaving the huge monster howling. Finally Elnor unleashed a new technique. She swung her sword, releasing a terrifying surge of energy that sent Riverback flying backward. But the assault was far from over. Moments later, a powerful force struck down from the sky onto Riverback, shattering the ground around him into fragments. After that blow, the monster coughed up blood. He scanned the spot where Dud had been and found no sign of him. "That bastard Dud, where did the rats run off to? What else are you hiding?" Riverback roared in confusion and sped off in a direction, the scene cutting to the city interior. By now the chaos Riverback's monsters caused had been eliminated by the Academy professors, who had the situation under control. Professor Conrad looked around, saw no more monsters, and nodded, "Looks like it's all cleaned up." Not far off, the swordswoman Elijah chimed in, "Good thing the heads of departments were here. If even one was missing we'd be done for." Above, head of magic purse agreed. "Right. Good thing we followed Dud to follow that Ras. That guy kept telling us to just have dinner nearby. If we hadn't been present, things would have been terrible for Elnor. Could this all be coincidence? Coincidence to such a terrifying degree? The more he thought about it, the more Uncle Conrad felt suspicious. Back to the protagonist's position. His body had just recovered after the monster's attack. He thought to himself, all right, Talion, well done. Phew. That really hurt. Elnor, hang on a bit longer. Just as he thought that, Elnor's body flew past right in front of him. Behind them, Riverback's cold voice rang out, Miss Tristan. Student Dud, you still haven't used tricks, right? If you have nothing left, it's time to die. As he spoke, he fired a bolt of black lightning. That pierced Dud's body, causing fresh blood to spurt out. Everything happened so fast that Elnor couldn't react in time and Dud took the hit. In that moment, as she witnessed it, the scene seemed to collapse into stark black and white. Back in Dud's view, the attack had left him in considerable pain, but it didn't seem fatal. He clenched his teeth against the pain. At the same time the system issued a reminder, enchantment of the mind activated. The message felt fragmented, but Dud sensed something. He hastily looked up and saw that Elnor's appearance had completely changed. A pair of demonic horns had sprouted from her head. The aura around her was utterly alien. The demon within Elnor had truly awakened. Returning to Dud's perspective, the moment the demon manifestation within Elnor appeared, he immediately registered the situation, thinking to himself that part of the system had been disabled and some abilities were being nullified. This was an incarnation through Elnor's body, the shard of the Grey Fiend. At the same time, as if sensing Dud hadn't been unlucky enough, the system announced, deadly charm easily attracts favor from those of evil inclination. The more extreme the inclination, the stronger the effect. With this notification, the Grey Fiend slowly descended before Dud. She gently raised her hand to touch the spot on his chest and murmured some strange words. Suddenly a dark energy began to gather over the protagonist's chest. It healed his wounds while leaving a mark on his chest. The system notified, you have received the Sate Seal, effects unknown. Seeing this, Dud's eyes went vacant. He thought to himself that the time on the wound had been rewound. A being this powerful in the world being so friendly felt strange. No matter how the future changes, for now he'll take whatever is necessary. The pressure was so intense it felt like his brain would short-circuit. He felt as if his flesh was burning from the connection to this entity. I'll copy a necessary skill right now, and I'll definitely need it later. With that thought, Dud didn't hesitate for another second. He used the skill copy reward he'd received earlier to copy a skill from the Grey Fiend. Whether sensing this or not, the Fiend clapped delightedly. Then she said something to Dud. When her words ended, time, which had been frozen, began to flow again. Above, the Fiend roared, scattering into dust. Dud, accompanying the shout, he unleashed a destructive bolt of lightning, firing straight downward. It caused a massive explosion, smoke and dust billowed everywhere. After unleashing that ultimate move, Riverback himself felt a bit spent and panted heavily. However, when the smoke cleared, all he saw was a large lake shattered into fragments by the lightning strike. But he saw no sign of the protagonist. This made the Fiend mutter irritably, that one disappeared again. At the same moment, Dud's figure suddenly appeared above him. Riverback sensed something and spun around, but it was already too late. At that instant, the protagonist's attack struck him. It sent his body flying like a cannonball, plummeting straight down. His impact immediately created a huge crater in the ground. What astonished Riverback most was Dud's current strength. He yelled, "What the hell is this?" When looking at the protagonist who had just descended from above, he looked like a superhero. When he faced Riverback directly, the system issued several glaring red warnings. Emergency situation. The system assessed this as a direct life-threatening danger, applying absolute emergency level X. Activated the new skill, King of Pandemonium for 5 minutes, granting absolute advantage against all enemies with demonic attributes. At this moment, through the eyes of the vassal Riverback, Dud was in an extremely strange state. A high-level demonic aura radiated from him, and his eyes had turned completely black. Just sensing the power Dud emitted was enough to make this big guy break out in a sweat. He screamed like a madman. How could a maggot-like creature do that? The prophecy about this, words still hadn't fully left his mouth. Dud dashed forward like a gust of wind. He landed a punch squarely on the demon's face, sending his massive body flying far away once more. Seeing this, Dud exhaled and said, "Round 2, come on." In the distance, Count Riverback lay in a large crater where his body had collided with the ground. His face still dazed. He couldn't understand why Dud's power had suddenly increased so much. He slowly sat up, glanced at Dud as the aura emanated from him, and thought to himself, why, using an upgraded version of the very skill I possess, the power I've twisted my body for years to obtain, yet that ragged nobody has mastered it so well? Unfair, truly unfair. The more Riverback thought, the more an invisible rage rose within him. Black chi flowed from his body with a terrifying killing intent, seeming to take on substance. The system issued a reminder to Dud: the black mist releases demonic essence to amplify power. A dark blessing, enhancing physique and resistance, reinforced with demonic essence. Then the demon Jeverbach howled like a rabid dog. He focused his strength into his fist and lunged forward. Seeing that, Dud did the same. Thus, the two charged straight at each other and threw full power punches. The instant their fists collided, a terrifying shockwave erupted, spreading in all directions. The ground cracked into many pieces as a result. Next, the demon Riverback took advantage of his long reach, and reached out to grab Dud's face to hold him while attacking with his other hand. But the male lead reacted quickly. He used his defensive skill to create two pairs of wings of light, blocking the black lightning from Riverback. This made Jerback's eyes widen. Holy power, how the hell can he also use holy power? Without answering that question, Dud took advantage of his daze and lunged forward. He drove a knee into his face, making his features cave inward. Dud's kick was so strong it sent his body flying forward and smashing repeatedly into a twin tower. Then, not giving Riverback a chance to react, Dud leaped lightly and appeared directly above him. He delivered a full-force kick, launching the demon down into the launch platform he had prepared earlier. At the same time, the skill he had copied from that grey she-demon expired. However, Dud had prepared everything. At that moment, he pressed the start trigger of the catapult, causing Riverback's body to be hurled forward. Dud! You bloody bastard! He shouted, and Dud mocked him since that's all he could spit out. Don't you have a cooler final line? Then, as if from nowhere, Dud produced a cannon and fired straight ahead. The powerful fire it unleashed began to burn Riverback's demonic body to pieces. Before he died, he finally understood everything. Could it be that all of this had been part of his plan from the start? Thus, after Jerback's body was reduced to nothing, the system issued a congratulatory notice: main quest completed. You received 1 essence of evil and 1 hero shard worth 5,000 points. Hearing the notification, Dud sighed. Did I really get all this? Looks like rewards scale with difficulty. Normally you only get to choose one. But anyway, now I have 2 items that could even bend the storyline. At that, he noticed Elnor was still injured somewhere and hurried to search for her. But Headmistress Atalanta's voice sounded right beside him. The student council president is safe, but more importantly, that was insane. Dud, I want to hear everything that happened with the Grey Demon. Of course Dud wasn't about to admit anything. Instead, the general pretended to be bewildered and asked, "What do you mean?" In response, Atalanta spoke plainly, "I'm asking because I already know, student. You were involved with a demon, weren't you?" Time quickly passed, the scene shifted to a medical room. Elnor remained unconscious and was receiving a blood transfusion. A voice asked, "Is the transfusion ready?" Another answered, "Not yet, but nearly." "What's her current heart rate?" "Below 50 beats per minute, damn it, why hasn't that cleric arrived yet?" Hearing the frantic noises around her, Elnor's eyes slowly opened. While she awaited recovery, Dud and Atalanta had a serious conversation. Atalanta spoke first. "One of the Grey Demon's abilities is corrosion. It has spread outward with you at the center. The Church and the Holy Kingdom will certainly take notice. You have become the Storm's Eye. Did you act knowing something this serious would happen?" As for him, he had long since decided to give up living as a background character, especially now, being dragged into matters with such a demon. He shrugged and replied, "Honestly, I just got lucky." Atalanta frowned and steered the conversation back to the Grey Demon. "The strongest of the Lords of Pandemonium is the Grey Demon. As I suspected, it used Student Council President Elnor as its host." Hearing this, Dud's expression shifted and he asked, "Headmistress, you knew about this beforehand?" In reply, the beautiful headmistress nodded. "As soon as possible. First, thank you, Dud, for fighting to protect the school and Elnor. You can come in, but listen closely, what I'm about to tell you is top secret." As she spoke, she snapped her fingers to levitate Dud in front of her and had him rest his head on her lap, then continued. "After the hero's final battle, the demon soul shards scattered everywhere. If even one shard appears in this world, the others will automatically gather around it. Because the Grey Demon awakened, even if only briefly yesterday, the remaining shards will soon appear." No need for her to say much. As someone who completed this damn game, Dud naturally understood perfectly. It's the same in the original storyline, a demon's host always brings catastrophe. The host of the Red Demon once caused the Red Knight incident, a tragedy that wiped out Elijah's entire family. These soul shards and hosts are randomly selected each playthrough, except Elijah and Elnor are fixed. Not sure what you're thinking. Headmistress Atalanta continued sharing information. The Holy Kingdom's intelligence network is terrifying. They've listed potential host candidates, and Elnor was among them. I did my best to gather them all at the school. Hearing that, Dud found Atania's decision puzzling. Select and gather them in one place. It sounds good, but putting all those dangerous people together seems reckless. Atalanta, seeming to notice Dud's confused look, explained, true love. Once, a demon's host truly loved someone, and the demon's soul shard was completely destroyed as a result. Love eradicated the seed of destruction, and it seems the gray demon really likes you. Hearing that, Dud felt a sudden, uneasy premonition. He hurriedly shouted, What? What are you saying? He protested, no way. However, Headmistress Atalanta had already observed everything. She said, I saw it from afar. It healed your wounds and even clapped happily, didn't it? Dud stammered in response. Maybe I just looked pitiful then and didn't let it finish. Atalanta cut him off. The point is whether there's any connection. The demon seems unusually affectionate toward you. Dud, your judgment, knowledge, and actions have been proven, so I'm honestly asking you to do one thing. Please, seduce the demon hosts. As she spoke, she brought her face close to Dud's. The move made him flinch. He quickly turned aside and refused. What? No way. Seeing Dud repeatedly decline, the headmistress offered, I'll do everything to help you flirt effectively, don't worry. Dud shouted in panic, no, that's not the point. Atalanta continued to persuade him. Don't worry, all current candidates are female. This is perfect timing and place. Even the demon applauds you? You can probably hit on ordinary girls easily, right? Use whatever means necessary to seduce them all, and destroy the demon's soul shards. Then the world will be saved. Returning to Dud's perspective. If swearing were allowed here he'd probably have done it. God, if that were the case I'd already have a lover. He complained, then asked, wait, didn't you say it requires true love? How many people do you want me to juggle? Atalanta knew how difficult that was, but besides asking Dud she had no other option. It won't be easy. Demon cultists are targeting them and the hosts aren't ordinary people, but even so, I still must ask you. Please save humanity. After saying this, she bowed with deep sincerity, making Dud want to quit this whole game. Thinking that, Dud didn't dare refuse aloud and could only ask, Headmistress, I know the answer, but what if I can't seduce them? Atalanta replied, I mentioned this in chapter 14. Humanity will be annihilated, the world shattered, and a dark empire ruled by demons will arise. Time quickly passed as the scene shifted to Elnor's sick room. At this time, the student council president had also woken from her coma. She quickly looked around, and upon realizing she was in the infirmary she murmured, Have we won? At the same time, a voice outside scolded, You can't just barge in like that. A student replied with a groan, Come on, I was here yesterday too. I even skipped class over this. She couldn't have woken up so soon. At that moment, Elnor's assistant rushed into the room and burst into tears of joy when she found Elnor awake. She hurried over to hug her close friend and scolded, How could you do something like that? You drove me crazy. I thought you were gone for sure. What the hell was that? What kind of battle was that? Elnor, remembering Dud who fought alongside her, asked, First, calm down a bit. How is Dud? In response, the assistant wiped her tears and explained softly, Dud, he's been discharged. Actually he wasn't seriously injured. The one who was badly hurt was you. We really thought you wouldn't make it this time. The words made the president uneasy and she asked, If I'm like this and Dud is fine, how does that make sense? The perspective returned to the secretary. At this point she began recalling her recent conversation with Dud. Looking at her friend still lying unconscious, she couldn't hide her worry and whispered, He hasn't woken for 2 days. If she doesn't wake up, Dud Campbell, I'll personally deal with you. Hearing that, Dud could be confident that Elnor wouldn't go down so easily. So he solemnly affirmed, Senior Elnor isn't someone who would die over something like this. I guarantee she'll wake within a few days. Dud's confidence made the secretary scratch her head in bewilderment. How can you be so sure? Dud replied with a gentle face, Because I'm still alive. Someone willing to risk his life to protect another. The Chiso family has never been weak. Returning to the present, the secretary smiled and changed the subject. Anyway, forget that for now, President. Since you're awake, there are a few things needing your approval. Elnor, annoyed at being put to work just after waking, complained, "Hey, I'm still a patient, you know." Ignoring that, the secretary quickly opened her notebook and handed over the tasks. Now for some unpleasant news. 2 important figures are coming to meet the president. The first is the Saintess Lucienne. Hearing this, Elnor stroked her chin, frowned in thought, and asked, "Isn't she due to enroll next semester?" The secretary explained, "That's true, but they've decided to enroll her next week, because of an incident involving an ex. The Holy State and the Inquisition are beginning to take action." "Well, I didn't intend to bring that up, but Lord Gideon will come to the school." At the mention of that name, Elnor's face showed surprise as she murmured, "My father is coming?" Meanwhile, in a distant room, a figure looked out and said with satisfaction, "The bustling atmosphere of this city is quite pleasant." Inside the room, the Saintess Lucienne, smoking, complained, "Hey, can you shut the window? The light is bothering me." Her remark almost made the stranger burst out laughing. How amusing. A saintess nowadays doesn't like the light. From behind, Lucienne exhaled a plume of smoke and mocked, "If you spend most of your life in a dim prayer house, you'll be like that." Her words left the young blonde man silent for a few seconds before he replied, "Isn't that a somewhat dark twist in the story?" Saintess Lucienne continued, "Close the window. Night." In response to that request, the blonde companion said, "I want to enjoy this peace a little longer." Hearing that, Lucienne sarcastically questioned the notion of peace. "A demon worshipper and a saintess in the same room, and you talk about peace?" The blonde knight laughed. "I thought we'd grown a bit closer by now." With that, the initial tension of their meeting faded. Not letting him say more, the saintess's face turned cold as she set clear boundaries. "We're cooperating toward the same goal, don't assume I want to be your friend. Do you think that's possible?" Her expression was full of teasing. But the blonde knight did not take offense. He said, "Those who hold the binding cord control you. 2 fates are choking our lives, we're the same in that." Returning to Lucienne's perspective, she exhaled another white plume of smoke, then whispered, "Think whatever you want, at least I still have someone I must protect." At that moment a figure flashed through her mind, her younger sister, the favored daughter Dud had encountered earlier, the secret beloved son of their father. "Summer is almost here. Father said summer where you are is much hotter than at home. Remember to take care of your health. Father sent some fruit, share it with your friends. I heard there's a parent meeting coming up, but our household is busy preparing for the harvest, so your parents probably can't attend. Instead, Father will send Heckman. If you need anything, tell him. Everything at home is fine. Don't worry and keep a low profile. Don't try to stand out." A crowd of students hurried forward. "You're clever, so Father isn't too worried, but absolutely no causing trouble, live quietly for him. Remember, if you get a girlfriend, bring her home during the summer vacation. This father wants to see his grandchild, doesn't he? In short, take care of your health. Your loving father, Armin Campbell." Luckily Father couldn't come. After reading the letter, Dud looked up at the friend before him and asked, "So you're Heckman? Probably the trainee butler or something." Heckman adjusted his glasses and politely replied, "Yes, that's right, sir. Master, if there's anything, please tell me at your leisure." At his words, someone chimed in, "Hey you, that attitude is a bit too obsequious." He brought the cluster of grapes up to him. "These are grapes the Lord sent for the master." Dud asked as he brought one to his mouth. "Seedless grapes?" He answered honestly, "They must be very sweet, right?" At that, some passing students glanced at him judgmentally. "That guy's always putting on an act, now he's even bringing a butler to school. Trying to play noble, huh? Look, he's eating them all by himself." Hearing that, he wiped his mouth and pushed the grapes back toward the butler. "Heckman, we need to pretend to be friendly like buddies here. Do as I say and finish these for me." The sudden request flustered him, he bowed, took the grapes, and complained, "Yes." Dud then said, "You'll probably be a trainee butler your whole life, huh? Alright, enough, now is not the time to relax." The principal's words were truly unimaginable. At this moment Atalanta's words surfaced in his mind, "Charm all the demon vessel candidates and save humanity." The system displayed a notification, "Elnor Tristan, affection level stage 1, mission activated, hereditary curse will appear in 7 days. Gideon Tristan, curiosity level stage 1, mission activated, hereditary curse will appear in 7 days. And in his head he thought, forget world peace for now. The immediate missions are the ones to worry about, but things didn't stop there. The system reappeared, main mission chapter 2, the king's demise will appear after the chapter 2 boss fight. That's the real problem, we need to plan ahead for the boss battle. Wait, by the original rules I never even met Gideon. What should I do? Back in reality, Heckman looked up at the sky with a satisfied expression. Master, it's unbearably hot here. Dud paid it little mind, other thoughts kept circling in his head. In the original story, that man appeared already dead. Though not an affectionate father to his daughter, a father is still a father. Originally, Gideon's death was the trigger for the awakening of the white demon. But I woke him during the Chapter 1 boss fight instead. Damn it, all of this is a mess now. His being recorded as alive means the script I know could change without limits. He thought to himself, fine, Elnor's father, I'll meet him. He must be avoided at all costs. No, avoid him. But if we do run into each other, we have to dig something out of him. Only then would there be a chance to deal with the Chapter 2 boss. Dud looked at Talion, who was pinching his butler's cheek, and asked confusedly, Hey Talion, what are you doing to my butler? His question made him uneasy. A butler? I thought he was being bullied or something. Can someone like that even do the job? Dud pointed at him and said irritably, Because you touched my butler, I'm borrowing your sword for a day. This sudden declaration surprised him. Huh? Why? But then he immediately knelt and offered his sword. Such an unexpected honor. Dud, please take and use it. He couldn't escape his own embarrassment and quickly explained, No, I'll return it. Not long after, our protagonist Dud went to ask Elnor for a favor. Elnor glanced at him with amused interest. Interesting. You enrolled in theology and now you want me to teach you swordsmanship? Dud raised his hand and began to explain. After that demonic incident, I realized many things. I realized that relying solely on holy power leaves you too weak in physical combat, so I want to learn the Chi-So swordsmanship even if only the basics. As he spoke he thought privately that, thanks to an innate boost in goodwill toward the wicked, Elnor would keep getting involved with him for a long time. She bowed her head slightly and smiled with disdain. That's the first thing you've said that sounds reasonable. If it's a constructive request from a junior, I'll help a little and see. Watching her draw her sword, he thought to himself he must use this chance to copy her techniques as much as possible. To build ties with Gideon later, there may be no path other than swordsmanship. Suddenly a voice rang out, What a rare sight this is. The busy student council president has spare time and refinement. Elijah approached from afar, offering private tutoring. Elnor glanced back and said she'd already asked him. Hearing that, she looked at him and asked, Is that so? But the president specializes in single sword style. Dud here uses a single sword. He raised his hand, forced a smile, and explained, It's fine, single sword or whatever, it's all the same. At his attitude, Elnor glanced with eyes full of killing intent. The type of sword doesn't matter, who teaches you is the core issue. Elijah sighed softly, Exactly, so if you're experienced as an instructor, teach, it makes much more sense. Hearing that, her face immediately darkened as she looked toward him. Was he implying her swordsmanship was superior to mine? That junior has no way of beating me, Elijah said as he placed a hand on his sword and stepped forward slowly. They moved toward each other, trading words. But I'm sure the Chi-So sword style has a flaw. Then show me that flaw, okay? On the condition you don't use your power. Seeing the situation worsening, Heckman suggested, Master, isn't this what people call a duel? Elijah raised his sword before him, eyes resolute. The Tristan family's power must not be used. Madam President. Elnor stood opposite, her gaze cold as it fixed on her. I want to see how far this goes. Dud, hearing their words, was alarmed. You were going to teach me, so why are you two charging at each other? Heckman at his side could only force a smile. Apparently they've been itching to clash for a while. Elijah lunged with his sword. Then allow me to instruct. Faced with his haste, Elnor barely reacted, lifting her eyes in a casual motion. As the blade neared her throat, Elnor gave no response, only watching in silence. A cold flash lit Elijah's gaze. Unexpectedly, she raised her sword to block his strike. Elnor braced her arm, trying to hold it as firmly as she could. After gaining momentum, she quickly surged forward and shoved him away. Witnessing that power left her a bit astonished. Too fast, not only fast but also very forceful. What are you doing, Elijah? Letting a demon overpower you? Suddenly Elnor's eyes widened in great surprise. Elijah was no longer at a disadvantage and immediately pushed back. Elijah withdrew his sword, watching with extreme caution. Elnor feared her clan was a demon clan. No matter how noble the bloodline, sooner or later it would be seized by demons and driven mad, whether you wanted it or not. At the same time, in her mind, she recalled the scene she had witnessed as a child. Seeing the desolation before her, Elijah looked as if he could hardly believe the reality. Returning to the present, her gaze grew cold. After all, she was merely a sacrifice to the demons. She slid her foot back to gain momentum. She unleashed her power. A blazing red flame enveloped her sword. With momentum gathered, she immediately surged forward and attacked. Seeing the streak of sparks hurtling toward them made him and his butler stare in astonishment. And a huge question mark seemed to appear in Dud's mind. Elnor remained utterly calm, watching her movement, struggling to control what could truly be called emotion. Then she leapt in front of him, intercepting the attack. The flame seemed to subside gradually. Elijah looked at them, eyes both astonished and remorseful. Sorry, but Heckman was so terrified he foamed at the mouth and fainted on the spot. Dud was utterly amazed, studying them. Is this human reflex? Faster and stronger than before. Could it be starting to fuse with the shard already? Elnor, seeing them silent, watched as Elijah tried to explain. I went too far. I'm sorry. President Elnor looked at her and slowly advised, your swordsmanship isn't bad, but as a candidate champion, you need to train things beyond swordsmanship as well. You can't have teammates getting injured, right? Realizing she was completely wrong, she stopped being stubborn and bowed in apology. Yes, Dud, I'm sorry. Seeing he had regained consciousness surprised her. Where did it go? In the great forest. Seeing Elnor's condition, there was no time to delay. If she stayed careless it would be ruined. She had to risk everything and grow stronger. After all, I never intended to become a pure swordsman. To survive, holy power is essential. Not only swordsmanship but also divine power must be improved. And to do that, Uriah was intently eating an apple. Suddenly his voice rang from afar. How have you been lately? You look alright. She looked at him in surprise. He is Uriah Greyhaunter, the Saintess's blood sister. Now it's your turn to help me. In the deadly space, a strange voice echoed. Still longing for someone to come rescue you or hoping someone will become your friend will only make your suffering worse. You must realize that soon. Hope is merely the overture to despair. Accept it, like your sister did. Bright red drops of blood fell straight onto her face. Everything around under her eyes began to dance. It seemed Uriah was falling into a deep pit of despair. A cold gaze looked down at her, and a voice said, You are nothing but a cursed sacrifice destined to be lonely until death. That is the path to protect everyone and also your mission. A dark space seemed to be gradually swallowing her. Uriah jolted awake from the nightmare, drenched in sweat. She found herself lying on a white sheet, her face still sunk in fear. From above, a beam of light shone down where she lay. Uriah reached up and plucked an apple from the tree. Then she slowly ate it, bite by bite. When finished, she now pushed the basket of red apples aside. While chewing, she glanced to the side. Dud stepped up from behind and asked, How have you been lately? You look like you're in good health. Hearing his voice, she immediately turned her head. A chain suddenly appeared. Uriah grabbed it in her hand and quickly attacked toward him. Dud drew his sword up, then swung down to block her attack. Why did you step into my attack range? You knew it was dangerous. A smug look crossed his face, as his sword slowly revealed itself. Not stopping there, Uriah spun the chain skillfully, and Dud was no slouch either. He dodged just like that. Seeing she still wouldn't stop, he kept pleading in his head, Please back off, I told you to back off. He used his sword to push the chain away, then slid across the ground. Dud glanced to the side as the chain suddenly whipped back toward him. Startled, he immediately fell over. Dud sighed tiredly and looked at Uriah with a look of admiration. Seeing her swing like that, it was clear she was still strong. Uriah stared at him in surprise. His voice rang out again, I told you, I'll drop by occasionally with food for you. You haven't forgotten me, have you? I didn't know what you liked, so I brought a bit of everything. With this amount you can eat comfortably for 2 or 3 days. Don't you feel lonely living isolated like this? Occasionally I'll come keep you company like this, would you mind? His attitude left her startled, but then the cold, hard voice suddenly surfaced in her memory, reminding her she needed to understand it soon. You are only a cursed sacrifice destined to be alone until death. Accept it. Back in the present, Dud looked at Uriah and urged her earnestly, Help yourself, I'll be going now. That memory reappeared, he standing before Uriah, uttering words that extinguished her hopes. Hoping someone will come rescue you or wishing someone will become your friend will only make your suffering worse. Uriah stared blankly at the pile of food before her. Then she slowly picked up a loaf of bread. She tossed her weapon aside as well. Uriah held the bread in her hands like a treasured possession. Tearful drops of sorrow slowly fell onto the bread. It didn't hurt, not at all. Time quickly passed. Back with Dud, the system notification appeared. Critical attraction, villain goodwill increased. Uriah Greyhaunter interest level, stage 1 reward available. Dud jolted awake in panic. What now? After only a few days with her and already stage 1, might as well check the reward. The system displayed, swordsman focus skill B rank, increases reflex speed and combat accuracy. He slowly opened the tap. Not bad, combined with the 1,000-pound hair trick it would be very effective. He also thought, wait, is that brat Heckman still asleep? What a useless layabout. Parents, nobles, royalty, and merchants will all attend. I've been training hard with Yuria because today the system board shows the Chi-So sword style, weapon agnostic, can now occasionally bypass defense at a low rate. He turned his head and called his late-rising butler, Heckman, and the sleepy-faced man slowly replied, I'm up, sir. Dud quickly fastened his last button, face full of excitement. Today he only needed to impress one person, and he thought to himself that Gideon Latristan, a sword genius, didn't appear in the original story. At the same time in town, the armored man looked toward the old man and spoke a request. Commander, if the ground is uncomfortable, please step onto me. The old man replied, it's fine, every so often one should stroll in the countryside like this. Nearby, a few people approached with eager faces. Word has it the Holy Emperor's realm is coming this year. Could it be true? That splendid cavalry we saw earlier, wow, maybe it's real. The Holy Emperor's realm is indeed participating. Hey, our son is competing. He entered school as second place, how could he not take part? On the stage. After seeing everyone had gathered, the MC began the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, parents who have traveled from far and wide, welcome. Our Elfanti Academy is the Empire's premier educational institution. We are deeply honored to host you at this observation session. The traditional Bat to Roy a welcoming event will begin soon. A man slowly stepped forward, his expression betraying surprise. Wait, could that person be? The two people seated nearby were equally astonished. Hey, are you kidding? Why is he present in a place like this? The man was said to never appear unless there was a war. Why is he attending a school observation session? His daughter is the student council president here. That's true, but there's a rumor he didn't even show up for the matriculation ceremony. Is that true? People say that man is a cold-blooded swordsman and nothing else, so no one dares approach or speak to him. Gideon narrowed his eyes and glanced toward the crowd whispering about him. Conrad hurried over from the side and asked, isn't that Gideon? What wind blew you here? He folded his arms and asked calmly, Senior Conrad Balthador, aren't you tired of teaching these kids? Conrad quickly sat beside him. Not tired. What wind brought you all the way here? Training? Is the attempt to catch up with the great Chi-So from the first era going well? Gideon folded his arms and sighed wearily. Just training, stepped out for some fresh air. I'm still practicing according to the written records. They say you must make Mount Tai your own. Hearing that, he grew curious and asked, strange. How are you proceeding? His face darkened and he answered, first I cut the mountain peak, an undeniably crude and brutal method. Below, the MC's voice rose again. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention. The contest will begin shortly. The students participating are volunteer freshmen. Conrad looked down and then explained, the contest will proceed under the supervision of faculty and medical staff. The MC smiled at the audience and continued, all desired weapon types have been prepared in wood. Contestants, please enter the arena. Immediately the crowd erupted. Come on, our girl, you must make the top 10. He slowly stepped onto the stands, thinking to himself, damn, I'm shaking right before going out. Did my character feel this way back then? Damn, I shouldn't have entered. Does he really have to catch Gideon's eye? Talion beside him smiled and said, in this match, Dud and I will face each other in the final duel. Elijah, as a candidate champion, had withdrawn, so it's not impossible. The MC's voice rang out, contestants needing weapons, please come collect them. Elijah looked ahead, thinking, Dud, why insist on entering this match? Does he enjoy toying with the weak sometimes? Or is it that noble sense of duty? The host continued, choose calmly. 1 minute until the match begins. The objective is singular, be the last survivor. That student will receive special points. Those who make the top 10 will also receive bonus points. Heckman below called up to cheer, Master, I think you only need to reach the top 10. Dud sighed to steady himself. He thought, Gideon must be sitting somewhere, right? Look at me, look at me. Elijah was also nervous, I'm watching, so don't worry. Dud, I trust you, but if anything happens I'll help. The MC began, all contestants, bow to one another. Elnor was up high at this time, silently looking down. In the audience, Gideon looked up. She announced, prepare to begin. As soon as the MC's voice ended, all contestants on the arena seized their wooden weapons and charged at their opponents, attacking non-stop. Talion swung his sword at him. Dud, I won't go easy on you. His strange behavior puzzled him. Why does this guy keep targeting only me? Still, there was no time to ponder. Dud reacted quickly and blocked his attack. Dud glanced over with a very pleased expression. What is this about? The brat in the stands watched silently. Dud raised his sword, ready to strike. The man frowned slightly at the sight. Those two look amused, don't they? The system suddenly issued a danger warning. Riru came up and launched a kick at him from behind. Seeing her appear surprised him. Riru smiled at him smugly. What are you doing? Jump in then. Riru Garuda, the younger daughter of the great clan of the allied tribes. This character will appear in Chapter 5. Talion was struck. He squeezed his eyes shut and cried out. He thought to himself above all. Elijah looked forward and asked confusedly, who is she? Riru stepped forward with a haughty expression. If you won't go, I'll go. He looked at her, thinking to himself she's just a brat who likes fighting. Her magic is the body enhancement techniques of the allied tribes. Even with my 1,000-pound hair activated I couldn't be sure of winning. At this point, she's definitely stronger than Elnor. Talion collapsed to the ground, barely able to stand from the pain. Did the master protect this weakling? Dud, are you shielding an opponent you're supposed to fight? Dud silently sighed and looked up at the sky, thinking, why would Kid Riru participate in an event like this? She isn't well known yet. Suddenly, his attitude shifted 180 degrees. I'll definitely make you number one today. Seeing this left him helpless. If you have time for that, then run. Talion stood, stepped forward to block him. Hey new face, if you're aiming this way you have to get past me first. Here I am, freshman runner-up Talion A-man. Can you swallow that? Riru asked him, you're the runner-up? Then I won't go easy. She suddenly pointed straight at his stomach. The system notification appeared, swordsman focus activated, reflex speed and accuracy increased. Dud looked on in surprise. Riru smiled brightly and said, don't die on me. Riru moved like lightning. Talion's eyes widened in terror. With a single simple move she sent him flying. Dud planted his sword before him to brace, and several others nearby were also knocked away. Talion was hit until blood spattered. He placed his sword before him, trying his hardest to block her attack. Clearly it had taken effect, yet the impact still surged inward. Seeing this power, the stands erupted. Wow, that's a freshman. Elfanti really sent her. Riru looked at him, smug. What's this? Thought she was just ordinary. You're holding back too. If you can take that hit, good. Then I'll go all out. He looked at her, thinking to himself whether, with his current stats, he could win. Unexpectedly, Ghi and Elnor exclaimed in unison, no way, even in a dream that's absurd. Riru rushed in, continuously launching kicks. She switched from legs to hands, unleashing a flurry of punches at him. Dud tried to keep his sword in a defensive stance. Now is not the time, don't act recklessly. Suddenly he cried out, wait, I forfeit. Riru was stunned to hear that. Above, people kept murmuring, what a coward. A noble with no pride, your classmate says you're forfeiting? He answered honestly, yes, sir. I'm stepping down. Elijah nearby observed and sighed, a wise choice, Dud. Dud took a few slow steps down to the arena floor. What the hell are you shouting for? You dared them to come up and fight but wouldn't when called. The MC looked a bit embarrassed. Well then, it seems the winner has been decided? Isn't that so? There are still contestants on the field, so continue. Riru seemed dissatisfied, it's only just getting interesting. She clenched her teeth, her face showing clear anger. Damn imperial bastard, who do you think you are? The system notified, lethal charisma has sown the seeds of an explosive popularity. Dud turned and, seeing the terrifying strength she displayed when angry, breathed a sigh of relief. Running was the right call, who forbids forfeiting? Suddenly a bubble-like bag appeared from nowhere and covered his head. When it was removed, he found himself in a different room. Beside Gideon a strange voice spoke, Dud Campbell, what is your relationship with my daughter? Hearing that startled him. Wait, I'm not mentally prepared. Dud sat up straight, looking a little anxious. She's someone who's helped me a lot during school life, just a friend. Ghi sat nearby, leisurely sipping tea. You learned swordsmanship from him? Dud widened his eyes in shock, watching. Calm down. Stay calm. Only then can the plan proceed. He then replied, no, sir. The man added, so who did you learn from? Tristan swordsmanship. In his mind he thought, as predicted, Great Lord Gideon had recognized it. Then he spoke up, so you noticed? In response to his question, the man asked back, the foundational lineage of the family's swordsmanship, how could I not recognize it? Answer me, who did you learn from? Dud frowned, calculating carefully, absolutely must not show nervousness. The man before him was like a blade, reveal a flaw and everything would collapse. Then he answered cautiously, someone even the Great Lord knows. The Sword Emperor is so prodigious he once visited a baronial family in our rural region. At the same time he silently prayed, please, believe me. Hearing that, the man suddenly said, your master taught you? That's an interesting boast. Go on, best way to hide a tree is to make a forest, a small lie requires a bigger lie to cover it. Dud looked at him and asserted seriously, it's the truth. He also entrusted matters and people to me. Hearing this, the man asked again, entrusted matters to someone like you? He nodded in confirmation. Yes, precisely, he assigned me a task. Great Lord Gideon Latristan asked me to teach swordsmanship on his behalf. Gideon slowly turned his head to look at him and asked, and this was at my master's request? He answered, yes, that's correct. At his confirmation, the man's face immediately darkened. Can you be held accountable for those words? He replied without hesitation, I can. Gideon, hearing this, did not refuse and immediately agreed. Very well, very well. Can you be held responsible? I don't really know, I'll just have to trust the power of the original work. After all, this is also my first time meeting him. Among all the players, I was the only one to meet Elnor's father first. There are countless rumors, but his strength is beyond question. This person is evaluating me, and rightly so. Suddenly someone crawled out of nowhere spouting all those unreasonable claims. It's understandable. But this pointless silence is really annoying. Gideon pointed his finger at him and asked, you won't block it? Hearing the question, he was stunned. Huh. His eyes narrowed, a cold murderous gleam flashing. You're dead. The wooden table and the teacup on it suddenly split in two. This is the invisible sword, an ability that slashes without a blade. The final, ultimate skill in the knight's skill tree used so effortlessly. Seeing this, his gaze turned horrified and speechless. Gideon pointed at the table, another one dead. Truly terrible. Against an opponent who can't even react in time like this, what could I possibly learn? He recalled the earlier scene and thought, indeed the knight's swordsmanship is the strongest in the empire. It was said to have pierced dragon scales, but it isn't complete. Dud pointed to the ground and asked, as formidable as the rumors claim. Lord Gideon, if it's a perfected technique, shouldn't some motions be omitted? Isn't that how it would be? Hearing his question, Gideon was somewhat surprised. What do you know to dare say that? In his mind he recalled, I'm just bluffing because I know everything. The journal found after Gideon's death in the original work recorded the entire process of how he became so powerful. It covered details about his master, his family, and everything. He turned his face, a worried look flickering as he glanced at the man, about the goal the Lord wished to achieve. I've heard there's such a thing. At his words, Gideon frowned thoughtfully. He added, to break the family's curse, there is one thing that must be cut. At the same time, Gideon recalled his master's admonition, disciple, cutting the sea with your teeth is easier. Then you will begin from the sea. Back in the present, his voice rang out, the rotational force is the key. At the moment the mental image forms, the sword's path must be drawn perfectly with the rotational force. Try channeling a bit more into it. Gideon did not respond, and sat in silence with his eyes closed. Honestly, I don't really know what this thing is. I'm just recalling what Gideon wrote in his journal. Advice his future self had given to his present self. The rest is up to him. Suddenly, large cracks appeared in the ceiling. A beam of blazing golden light flashed in the space. Gideon stared up at the source of the light in astonishment. He stood facing him, suspicion clear in his eyes. Who exactly are you? Unfazed, he smiled and replied, I'm simply someone who wishes Lord Gideon to become stronger. At the same time he thought to himself that this way the Lord wouldn't die and Elnor wouldn't be corrupted. Besides, it's already obtained. The Tristan family's Feng Dac immunity privilege. No matter what they do, they are not subject to legal judgment. This is a one-time authorization document written by Gideon himself. Gideon currently serves as the Empire's shadow minister, the one who handles the royal court's dirty work in the shadows. His status is no different from a dog with a collar. In any case this pardon will be very useful for proceeding with Chapter 2. The system notified, lethal charisma. The number of villains with favorable impressions has increased. Skill enhanced, the more villainous recognition the fate attraction skill gains, the greater Dud's rewards. In the room Dud pointed at the letter, eyes somewhat astonished. This can be enhanced too. The system kept popping up, received enlightenment from Gideon, his butler was still blissfully asleep. When an enlightened one awakens a villain's ability, they receive a similar power. The added ability can be used identically for a time. Seeing those system messages left him a bit puzzled. What kind of skill is this? Gazing at the light through the windowpane, he murmured inwardly, perfect timing, this ability will add wings to what I'm about to do. A moment later, Dud looked at the letter, his expression a little flustered. After finishing his plan he immediately closed the book. Is this enough for the upcoming plan? Dud smiled with satisfaction. It won't be easy, but I've said I'll take responsibility to Gon, the Tristan family. I will definitely protect everyone. In class, the lecturer taught energetically, explaining that within every human there is divine energy granted by the gods. This is completely different from demonic mana. Why? Because anyone can use it without being chosen. However, reaching a level where one can truly wield divine energy takes time. The lecturer glanced around the classroom, and seeing many empty seats he couldn't help but be disappointed. Is that brat here to sleep or to listen? Why are vacancies increasing like this? Damn it, it's all that bastard Bach's fault, bringing monsters to school or zombies, whatever, screw him. A devil worshipper like that is beyond the limit. Besides, this semester's litters of students are unbearable, all rebellious. Some even dare strike the professor's head. No one yet knows things between me and Jerbak have soured. She'll endure a bit longer and then quit. Right, just quit already, after all, it's here. He spoke up, do you have a question? How does one cultivate divine energy? This made him furious. That smartass. Seeing his students uninterested in study, he asked irritably, divine energy or whatever, use it continuously and your proficiency will rise. Is that even a question? Dud propped his chin on his hand and replied casually, questions are still good, sir. Hearing that made the lecturer furious, the dignity of the lecture was ruined. Looking at the papers in the desk only made him angrier. That bastard, has he always been a thorn in my side? He frowned in annoyance, thinking he should quickly take this stack of confidential information and find a job elsewhere. That way he wouldn't have to see those damned students, and let the stupid principal leave this wretched empire too. Good. Unexpectedly, a loud knock came from outside. Professor. He heard the call and immediately stepped toward the door. These lice-like students are finally leaving, I'll teach you one last time. Opening the door, he grumpily warned that it was about to break, you lot. But as he opened it, a burst of force hit and sent him flying. Outside came a voice, still haven't run away. He turned back angrily and shouted, what? Are you insane? How dare you kick a professor? Elnor raised her foot in front of the professor and replied coldly, that just now was the door, and the professor is right here now. You lot are insane. One of the two voices rang out. What are you saying? Sir, the theology professor. When he came to, he found himself tied to the front chair. Seeing the two before him, he panicked. What is this? Dud looked up casually and said, this isn't a joke. We're detaining you now. The more he heard, the angrier he became. What nonsense are you barking? Detaining me, what crime did I commit that entitles you to do this? His voice rang out. You are a spy. Hearing that, he froze immediately. What? Elnor hurriedly continued, accused of negligence in the monster escape incident. I've reported it to the headmaster. A professor letting imperial students die? There's only one conclusion, your purpose was never education. Moreover, at Marquis Riverback's house a correspondence exchanged with you was found. Caught out, you still refuse to admit it and keep arguing. Ridiculous, what does that pathetic devil worshipper have to do with a priest like me? I'm merely networking. I'm a victim too. Dud checked the time and ordered, noisy enough, no time to waste, so confess quickly. Start with the names of spies like you in the school. Hearing that, he snapped irritably, go ask your mother about that. But no sooner had he finished than Elnor lunged forward to attack. Now will you talk? Then begin. He stammered with a bruised face and replied, Guard Badino. Cook-Annie. Dud suddenly placed his hand on his head to heal his poor pronunciation. At that moment, Dud put a hand on his head and began restoring him so the man wouldn't be too weak and croak. As he began to recover, the professor immediately raised his head and glared at him. What are you doing, you bastard? Dud looked up at him with an utterly cold expression. I'm restoring your health, sir, using divine energy. You said proficiency increases with frequent use, so when there's a chance I have to try it. Seeing him about to leave made the professor panic. You madman, where are you going? Dud turned coldly and replied, this isn't something that ends after naming a few people. Elnor, standing nearby, added, search his desk, something will turn up. He begged out loud, please don't. At that moment his body emitted a pink energy trying to break the binds. Dud held the folder, expression slightly surprised. What's this? You teach in theology and you even know the Empire's military roster? If that's the case, just enlist. He quickly lunged to grab the folder. You madman, give it here. Elnor wasted no time and swung her arm to attack. He turned in time to see it but couldn't react. A single simple move sent him flying, his back slamming hard into the wall. Yuria below heard the commotion and couldn't help but be curious. What sound was that, earth-shattering? Watching the papers slowly fall, he smiled softly, Sir, is this everything? It seems to be all of it. Now hand this over to the school's night squad, right? As for him, he lay motionless on the ground. Suddenly he spoke up to stop them, wait, senior, I'm still a freshman and I'd like to learn a bit more about divine energy. He lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Right, now I understand why I can't stand that brat. Last time it matched the one I met with Riverback. In his mind he recalled a past scene, he was kneeling on the ground, speaking respectfully, O pioneer, first time meeting you. A strange voice from above thundered down, if you ask about me you will die. If you reveal that you've seen me you will die, if you forget me, then death would be a mercy. He looked down, expression thoughtful, and thought to himself, it must be that unfamiliar, bizarre, whimsical feeling. One of their voices rang out, all right, begin the treatment. Sir, he looked toward him, eyes a bit startled, thinking it was as if something was ordering him to act. A voice in the house called out, thanks to you, senior. My divine energy has increased to the point it's affecting the soul seed. We've caught a rat disguised as a professor. Senior, have you managed to relieve some fatigue? Elnor, standing behind him, said, well, I don't take pleasure in torturing the elderly for fun. The system displayed a notice, Elnor's madness has shown good progress. He thought inwardly, clearly she's been venting already, tough luck, senior, this isn't something you can reason away. Suddenly she asked, isn't there anything you want to tell me? He was staring at the keychain in his hand and replied, no. She suddenly stepped closer and asked, you met my father, didn't you? Why did you meet him? Dud flinched, sweat beading. Me? What? She repeated, I'm asking you that. He stammered but affirmed clearly, yes, the meeting happened, but I never revealed it outside. Elnor still looked puzzled. Huh? Dud was in a panic, trying to calm himself. Damn, a variable, think of something. That brat. She continued questioning. Eventually Dud came up with a story to tell. Last time in the match I used the real sword move you taught me. His Highness was just curious who the kid was and called me over, nothing major. Finally she decided to turn away. Maybe that's her limit. She pulled her hood down, blushing, and warned, before you protect me, show some manners, call me guild president. Heckman followed behind, complaining. Young master, did you just go out with Lady Tristan? Seriously, the Marquis told you not to attract attention. Dud turned back cheerfully and emphasized, I only have 3 friends at this school, and one of them is Princess Chi-So from before. Heckman looked worried. Young master, isn't that a bit autistic? Dud clarified, they're more like complicated connections than true friends. Dud changed the subject, curious. And you're pretty conspicuous for a butler. Where did you get that? Heckman, holding a half-eaten ice cream, explained, they were giving them out for free outside to cheer on the midterms. There were 31 flavors. Dud suddenly remembered something important. Right, the midterm survival exam, when the soul seed and trial fragments and heroic divine energy shards meet fusion conditions, they can awaken a soul's consciousness. He turned and ordered, Heckman, instruction, go taste the remaining 30 flavors and report back. Heckman promptly obeyed, on it, young master. He briefly wondered if that kid really wasn't a butler. Dud sat down, lost in thought. Now he could awaken the ghost of the Gregory Manor. He recalled important details thanks to the increase in divine energy when he healed the priest. Dud sighed, trying to find an answer. When you awaken a ghost, a great person's spirit that helps the player grow will appear, but it's random. You never know which great spirit will show up. It's always an event. His biggest worry was not finding a suitable match. If someone incompatible appears, Dud narrowed his eyes tensely, it's essentially a loss. Then he began the opening ritual. What's this? The damn train pass is here too. On the stands the flags fluttered alongside cheers. So cool. Dud went pale, sweating as he examined. A knight? Who is that? Weapon Master Frederick, Tanker Johann. He tried to rummage through his memory. Who are they? I feel like I've seen them before. At least they don't seem evil. That's already good. Who is that? Oh, the person turned their face back. The Dawn's guardian Caliban Chrysanax. Dud panicked, realizing he was Elijah's brother. He was utterly helpless. This is completely over. In the desolate scene, Caliban Chrysanax stood there dazed, just standing around. Come here and help. Truly hell. Elijah wept over the tragedy of the Red Night caused by the Red Demon vessel, and Elijah's brother rose up. Guardian Caliban, who sacrificed his life to prevent the Red Night disaster. Caliban Chrysanax became a great hero. He became a hero through that sacrifice. The image of his father, the image of his mother. Elijah cried endlessly. He had said he'd return. He said if she waited he would come back. From that event, Y also followed in his brother's footsteps. But all deaths were just tragedies for their family. On the day they lost all their relatives, Elijah decided to follow his brother's path and become the demon slayer who left her an orphan. The cheers rose, hitting harder. The one who ranks first among you will fight Elijah. When grown, Elijah was awarded the sole special class warrior title of this national defense training. Give Elijah a round of applause. The Empire's official commission. The candidate warrior will also be presented. From then on she became a champion. The teacher was announcing their exam. The midterm will be held fairly in 4-person team battles. Who are the Empire's main enemies? Beastmen and demon worshippers. Right. Ifanti is the organization set up to fight them. Combat and survival ability are the main scoring points in the midterm. Dud turned to ask. How is it? Caliban, your sister here is still doing well. Caliban Chrysanax seemed incredulous and asked, so you mean the girl? Yes, my sister is currently an official candidate warrior of the Empire, he reiterated. Yes, it's official. Caliban Chrysanax chuckled with pleasure. This kid was just a green-nosed child not long ago. Dud stressed that Elijah is an adult now. Caliban suddenly uttered something strange. Truly worth it. Dud turned, puzzled. What? In Caliban Chrysanax's heart there was nothing but overflowing joy. Having been reborn as a spirit, he simply felt odd seeing his sister grown. Dud stammered a hint. Well, after all I resurrected you, right? So, Caliban, do you mean I should cooperate? Yes. Can you help me? All right, just don't tell my sister about me. Dud respectfully replied, yes, thank you. Caliban turned and smiled brightly, and the intuition of one who had died told him, I don't know what laws you've mastered that I haven't, but I feel you're a good person. Keep an eye on my sister, please. I'm counting on you. Dud awkwardly scratched his neck, embarrassed. For now my goal is to keep no one from dying. He called out Elijah's name. She turned around. HM? Dud. Dud cleared his throat and made a suggestion about the midterm team. If you still haven't decided on a team, would you like to form a team with me? Elijah suddenly froze. Elijah looked slightly skeptical and hesitated, asking back, you want to team up with me? Dud didn't hide it and answered, I'd really like us to be on the same squad. Elijah, surprised, exclaimed, you said you weren't that close last time. Dud hesitated then honestly replied, I already apologized for that, didn't I? She began calculating something again, brow slightly furrowing as she continued thoughtfully, saying it like that. You probably planned to make me do weird things like last time, right? At the same time he stepped forward, cheerfully lifting the veil of awkwardness, baring his teeth in a big grin, hey, just accept it, after all, that girl studies you day and night to win. He added casually, always playing teacher and student, don't you notice? Dud heard it and could only force a smile, avoiding his gaze. Then no more politeness. Lend me your teammate. From the other side she excitedly shouted in alarm, this one is asking you. Please join our team. But when she saw him get scolded down to silence, her tone shifted. Well, it's not that bad. Right? Elijah awkwardly rubbed her neck and said, but this is an opportunity for us to interact and grow. Are you really okay with leaving your friends? It should be fine. Each member of the group is quite capable. In his heart Dud understood one thing clearly and told himself, of course, after all, it's the protagonist's team by principle. Seeing him silent, Elijah winked and snapped her fingers toward Dud. Then teacher and I will cooperate after so many days apart. Dud leaned over decisively and looked at her to refuse. We're forming a team here. Hearing that, she seemed to lose all energy and languidly added, we need about one more person. A stunned sound from Dud reached the luxurious palace outside, catching the headmaster's attention. Dud regained his composure and hesitantly spoke clearly, you're being so generous, thank you, sir. The headmaster calmly sat in the chair and replied, it's not a big deal. Her eyes showed no emotion as she glanced down. Strange business, the Saintess arrives with a night guardian, intentionally coming all the way here. I cannot fathom the monarch's intent. Dud smiled naturally and answered sincerely, what intent? Lucienne can't be locked up forever, right? Taking advantage of this routine diplomatic envoy, the girl stepped forward, recalling Lucienne's innocent image, and the headmaster still looked somewhat pensive. The Saintess also needs to learn about the world, doesn't she? Hearing Dud, the headmaster couldn't help but ponder. Though called a Saintess, according to my investigation, the more I think the more mysteries appear. She is also one of the demon vessel candidates. Therefore, I have quietly prepared so that one day she might come to Ifanti. Sending her twin sister Yuria out was the first step. And yet they proactively sent the Saintess here. Then she looked back at Dud. He kept a smile on his face but was skeptical. Why? Pope Credo. The one opposite noticed the doubt on her face and explained, Lun is a symbolic figure for both the Empire and the Holy Republic. I should say in advance that this was a bold decision, not an easy one for us. Hearing this, the headmaster suddenly realized a hidden motive. Could this drastic action be because of the recent monster incident? Seeing she grasped part of it, Dud happily replied, there was that incident. And an Elfanti priest was discovered to be a spy. That side cares a lot about that matter. Finally, unclear how the headmaster felt, she asked, wouldn't this chaotic situation be bad for the Saintess? She inwardly considered it bait to see who would take the hook. But Dud answered opposite to what the headmaster expected, no, on the contrary it's good. Coldness flashed in Dud's sharp gaze. He spoke through gritted teeth, if one is truly a Saintess of the Empire, she must have the courage to face justice and not flinch where evil runs rampant. Instead, we hope Elfanti will assign Lucienne. And, based on what the headmaster knows of Lucienne, she asked further, I heard the school is in the middle of midterms, hopefully the girl will help train the students. What do you mean? Dud couldn't disclose everything. He closed his eyes slightly and replied, we'll convey the specific details privately later. Just understand that all of this is for the purpose of eradicating the evil spreading in Elfanti. The headmaster hesitated, studying Dud's expression, then asked, Your Holiness, are you being sarcastic right now? A loud laugh rang out, recalling Lucienne's cold gaze. The headmaster began to lose patience. She coldly reproached, do you intend to order Lucienne, no, the Saintess, to do something? Can't we just refuse? Dud showed no anger and replied calmly, if the Saintess volunteers, it's a different matter, isn't it? He merely smiled softly as the image on the orb gradually disconnected. Before vanishing he said, that girl will surely be useful. When he disappeared, the headmaster rubbed her face in fatigue and sighed with impatience. Damn! She silently cursed Dud through several lifetimes, so inhumane. The Pope of the Holy City, that old man is as sly as a venomous snake. Then she looked at the mirror beside her. She still couldn't believe she could meet the Saintess so easily. Yet the headmaster harbored doubts about the unequal terms he offered, terms that would make her a puppet of the Empire. So I'm truly asking you to charm those demon vessels, she thought. At this moment, could Dud really be trusted? The more she thought, the more annoyed she became. Instinctively she took out her lipstick while inwardly snarling, hypocrite Atalanta. Now the headmaster revealed no hint of emotion, her gaze distant and unreadable. If forcing others for one's goals is needed, she is no different. Switch to a different scene. Yuria was washing a cloth by the stream, but Yuria's mind wasn't on the present. She gazed pensively, longing, why hasn't he come? Around her there were only plants and flowers. The silence felt strange, contrasting with her anxious anticipation. It's been days. Her lips pressed tight, a restless unease she couldn't describe. He usually comes around this time. In Yuria's memories there was only the image of the man with the mask, always cheerfully saying, you defended well today, good job. I'll come again tomorrow, so wait for me. What should I bring? Steak, cake. His image seemed to invade her entire mind, gradually corroding her emotions. She sadly told herself, you don't have to bother bringing food, just. It turned out that for her now, all she needed was for Dud to come and stay with her. A silence settled in Yuria's mind. Her eyes looked hullily ahead. The space seemed to tell her it was bored with her. Yuria, bored? The answer was simple. Each word seemed to erode her will, as if she were falling into a bottomless abyss. Yuria Greyhaunter, the lone one, had betrayed the Holy Empire. Yet a familiar voice from her past when she fled with a sword rang in her mind. Weren't you mentally prepared? That damned fate must cut down anyone who approaches you. It was an answer Yuria had pasted onto herself. Haven't you been able to bear it? That voice planted resignation and hidden hatred in her head. This is the cursed life you chose, Yuria. It was a trembling feeling born of a fleeting illusion. Reality remained unchanged. Yuria's small body hung in the fixed space, each phrase seemed to want to swallow that tiny form. Fortunately alone, it engulfed her unstable emotions. She would be alone forever. In panic, Yuria finally broke free. She clutched her chest, trying to draw in breaths. Questions kept echoing relentlessly in her head. When left alone in an empty forest like this, who will you look for and who will come to you? It broke Yuria down. Those beautiful eyes welled up, that voice kept urging in her mind. Someone who can't even call for help like you. It was trying to seize the gentle feelings Dud had given her. It could succeed. At that moment, a familiar voice sounded. Why are you crying? It was Dud. He looked rather tired, clearly hurried to get here. He held a packet of snacks in his hand and asked, did something happen while I was gone? Ah, the biscuit you said wasn't sold. Seeing that, all of Dud's previous emotions vanished, and Yuria ran joyfully toward him.